Right. Plat Chat. Episode 167. It says I'm live on YouTube. We figure it out. We figure it out, lads. Here we are.
We are live?
We're live,
for
indeed.
sure?
We're live.
Okay.
And what a day. I mean, the grass is green. The sun is shining.
Yep.
LA, like the streets are wet. It's finally drying up. You can feel like the warmth of life returning. Just an amazing Tuesday. How's it over by you, Avast, in Florida? How's life?
It's been, I mean, honestly, you guys have been getting like the Florida treatment in LA, but with none of the infrastructure. And you got hail. You guys got hail over there, right?
Well, at least we don't have alligators.
Snowing. Hasn't it been snowing?
In LA.
Not where I am.
Yeah. Not near us, but it has been snowing more to the east.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not normal, right? This is abnormal.
No, abnormal. Especially
Extremely
this late
abnormal.
on Friday.
So I got an abnormal LA weather story for you. So obviously I came over, we all came over to the finals last year, right? And during the roughly week I was in LA, it rained like 2 or 3 days out of the week I was there. And I remember I hung out with you guys, played Top Golf, and everyone, you guys are clear, everyone's telling me, like, man, it never rains here. It never rains in LA. I'm like, yep, only just I show up and it's fucking raining.
True.
I love
And it still is, and that's how abnormal this is.
This is like
And
the
it's like it
second,
never
like,
stopped.
rainstorm.
It just kept going.
Well, like every week there's been like at least one rain thing, which is just, as I said, it usually never rains.
And then you're getting like snow and stuff, and I'm seeing like all the teams and like staff and such are like, yeah, I don't have power in my building. Like none of my building has power because like the infrastructure is completely not ready for this much water. So then it's like it's just insanity. It's crazy what's happening over there. I mean, I myself am, before it kills us, I'm very interested to see the ramifications, how it affects the infrastructure of our lives and our continuously changing climate. So I think it's going to be a very interesting thing. So overall, but how does it affect esports? How does climate change affect esports?
Let me tell you.
I found a video.
Wait, where is this?
I don't know.
What is that?
Supposed
What?
to
Dude surfing on a car.
Actually, I think, is this the 5? I remember people saying that there was the 5 did flood. Like, which means nothing to a lot of people, but that's...
So it's actually flooding. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not just raining. It's
it was flooding in portions. In portions, it was extreme flood. There was flooding. There was hail, and then there's like blizzard warnings.
So where I live, there's actually like some hills and stuff, and like they're just regular roads up, and so all the cars that are like parked on like the hills, on like the slopes down, they just fucking wash down the hill because like, there's nothing to help them out.
Is it flooding because there's just that much rain, or is it because LA has no idea how to deal with rain?
No infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's like...
The streets just don't know how to handle the rain.
Yeah, like if this amount of rain happened in Seattle, I don't think it would be as big of an issue, right? But it's like the problem, like in LA, when it rains in LA, sometimes my internet just shits the bed. Remember when we had Custa to spare for like an entire episode?
Yes,
and like I just
classic.
kept going black and white? That was because it was raining in LA. Like it just randomly shits.
Does it do something to your wires or something? I don't understand.
I don't know. I can't even tell you how rain leads to bad internet, but it does.
Also, this is such like I'm looking at these videos and people are like, "Oh my god, it's flooding! Oh my god!" Like the cars are still
people
driving.
using their wind wipers.
Usually, when I look at like
for the first
flooding
time.
videos in the world, it's like legitimately like the cities are like underwater.
This is LA. There's no way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've been seeing like they saying parts of like that area have been getting like blizzard warnings.
This is like not Los Angeles.
Snow.
Yeah. I think this is more north. Maybe this is like San
Might be more
Francisco,
north, but it's
or
still
like...
very like atypical for the time of year in the
Yeah.
area. It's still extremely atypical. Like that's what I'm saying. Like my weather is like, yeah, I'll get rain and hurricanes and shit, but we definitely don't get any snow down in South Florida, and like it's just like it's wild out there. It's absolutely wild. I'm seeing, but the flooding is crazy because I think a lot of people have in LA. They have like. They're not like the houses and stuff aren't proofed in certain cities for like the water, or they have like basements and such. And I'm seeing a lot of people, they have to leave because they're getting flooded just because of the accumulation of water. It's not because it's like a tsunami. It's just the water's accumulating, just like getting
got nowhere to go, right?
Spaces. Yeah.
My dad sent me a text and I was like, "Are you okay? Like we're getting reports in Sweden that like it's the worst blizzard like in California ever." And I sent him a picture. I was literally on a walk with my dog and it's like sunshine and like no clouds, and I'm like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. We're good. So, well, we're worrying about small floods in LA, but it's over now. I think it's going to rain tonight, and I think it's over. So we're good.
Yeah, it's getting to the end.
We're survived. Something else we hope is good is esports.
Are we going to survive?
We're kind of surviving right now, guys. There's a flood warning in esports.
Everyone's running for high ground.
So do we just start with like the guard news? The guard, it was reported that they laid off massive amounts of people. It was esports.gd, right? Yeah, 6 days ago.
It was, yeah, it will. I think it technically
One heck of
came
a
out.
headline.
I think it was like
Regardless of
Hunter.
all its employees.
Technically not
The
true.
headline should have been. The headline
Yeah,
should
not
have been
true.
everyone abandons guard. It should have been the headline.
Yeah, that's technically they laid off almost everyone. Almost everyone, not everyone.
Well,
So-
but that makes sense because right, like they still have some operations and they still need people to like.
I mean, I looked
Help
at the
close it
spreadsheet that
down,
someone
right?
put out, and it's pretty much just like content, merch, and some social people, right?
They
Yeah.
laid off. No, they laid off essentially all the elements of an organization minus the competitive elements, and they have like one social media manager and one graphic designer left.
Hmm.
So
And as I said, that's surely like the way I think about that is it's like they're just doing that for the rest of the year, right? Like this is them preparing at the end of the year. Everything.
well, that's
will
what the
shut down.
report said, right?
Yeah.
That the report is if they do not find a buyer by the end of the year, the LA Gorillas and the LA and Los Angeles Gladiators are both going to be. They're just going to shut down. They're just going to say good night. We're powering off.
That was a
It's
separate
over.
report, right? Because I don't think
That
it's
was a
in here.
separate report, but I think it's I don't know if it's in there, but it's a separate report. But
Are they-
I do know that it's like that was also reported, which makes sense because you can't lay off every single person in your organization that makes your org run essentially,
Yeah.
and then not and continue to operate like unless
Question.
you want them to be Valiant tier, which is like possible.
Are the rest of the guard teams already dead or what? Because they had obviously a Valorant team.
They still have their teams,
what
as
else
far
were
as
they
I'm
in?
aware. They still have their Apex team. They have their Valorant team, and I don't know actually
What's happening?
one
Are
of their
those are
teams-
those folding as well at the end of the year, or are those about
I
to be
think they're
folded?
still set. I think they're still running because they have contracts. So I
Yeah.
think they're still operating.
So
because of the
essentially,
contract.
it sounds like across CDL, OWL, and the rest of the games are in. They're fulfilling the contracts and then trying to exit after that.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. Unless they can find buyers. If they can find buyers, then the brand or like at least like
Or-
all that stuff will
or
be transferred. So.
They can transfer control to LGE, and we have two. LA
Yes, that's what I'm
teams
saying. They
somewhere.
could
Yeah.
they could pool a Valiant, but like no one wants that. That's like worse. That's worse than shutting down, in my opinion.
We'll
That's-
also be talking about
I would
NoHill as
rather.
well.
I would rather that
Yeah.
that would happen. So
Not
But
great.
it's like, where do we go from here?
Not
Like, how do we
Yeah.
dissect this?
Do you?
We got one more guaranteed year of Gladiators.
Yeah,
And
we do.
start.
Okay. All
we
right.
get one more
all
year
right.
of Glads.
All right. Let's start here. I mean, I think both Avril and especially Avast will have some kind of like information and takes on this subject matter. So when it comes to like the team brand building and like content creation in esports, we talk a lot about the struggle to generate income from a lot of different sources in esports. Is it actually worth investing in a content team like the Guard had and investing like so much money into their brand? Obviously, they made a decision that it wasn't sustainable, and maybe this is just like the first thing when it comes to a broader vision of the Cronkies. Just like, well, we don't give a shit about esports anymore. Esports in general is just garbage. But starting on the content creation side of things, a lot of teams are investing money into like their YouTube channels and like trying to get their name out and stuff like that. But it seems pretty tough to like make a return on that investment at last.
Yeah, because it's esports. I would say the content team is probably the most valuable portion of the organization because it's how you can guarantee independent income and build your brand independently of like other factors. The problem is you're trying to do it with players that have no personality and small brands. So that's like the real problem inherently is like, and I think that, and also part of it is because of how they approach the content. Because for example, I think NRG are one of the orgs that do esports content pretty well. But the reality is when you look at the NRG esports channel, the NRG YouTube channel that includes a lot of their professional players, there's two big aspects that are different. One, NRG, their Valorant team their Valorant team has a big streamer, a large content creator attached to it named Som. Guard had especially their Valorant, they had no large content creators that were like routine, like large content creators. I'm talking like they had like mid-sized ones. Additionally, I think that like they also were just better with the way that they sometimes approached it. They were better with I think ideation, like building the content out, like thumbnail design, etc. So So yeah, that's like it's a big issue there. Is that like it's a very niche subset of content with like not very big personalities. Like content team is how you make currently your only source of independent income as an organization. It's just more so like what do you have to work with and like what is the content you're going to try to make, you know, because you want to hit a broader audience. But hitting a broader audience with like very small creators, essentially at that point you're trying to become a content aggregate, right? Trying to become a hub. Versus like an East, and that's harder because you're starting from the ground up. You don't have like necessarily huge creators attached. Like who from the Gladiators was a big creator? No one.
Well,
It was Space. Would have been Space. But...
They're promoting Aspen here, of course. On the
yeah, but even Aspen,
Space.
I think Aspen is she's grown a bit for sure. But would you? But the point being is that like I think they've tried to integrate Aspen, pretty well, but there's still a process to do that. And it takes time. And also there's the other thing, it takes time. When you're building a channel from the ground up in many ways, you're not going to see like immediate return on investment unless you like kind of get lucky or hit like really banger ideas, which can be hard. It's not like immediate. And I think some of the things I've heard for Guard is that like they just ran out of runway. They literally ran out of runway. Like they were still hiring people as they closed down the office. Like, which is absurd. And also that's an insane mismanagement because like generally like what we've seen with other companies like 100 Thieves and FaZe reduce their size generally because of partnerships. I've heard that's potentially the same reason for Guard. I don't know for sure, but it's like because of losing partners potentially is that you will sometimes have to lay off staff and reduce your staff. But if you lose like a key partner and you have to shut down your whole org and you're still hiring people, that's like insane. That's like insane mismanagement from a business perspective. Like 100 Thieves had to lay off 15% of its workforce, and it's like reported that it was because of like some partnership allocation changes and such. So that's like very, very bad mismanagement. Like it's totally understandable if you have to lay off a bunch of people, but you like your whole org, like your whole org rested upon one partner potentially. Like that's ridiculous.
Well, that's not what is expected of the Guard, right? Like what it sounds like, and what a lot of people's assumption has been, is that the Cronky Group has just decided to pull the plug on investment.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, of like venture capital investment. They're looking at the books of like what we've invested in the Guard, the LA Gorillas, and the Gladiators, and they're like, why are we spending money on this? And the reality is he has the money to blow, and like that organization has the money to blow because they are so wealthy, but they're probably looking at how in the red overall these teams are, and they're just like, what is the point of this? Like, we're not getting return on investment.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at a checkbook, right?
Yeah.
They're not making emotional decisions based on like their perception of esports or league. They're looking at a checkbook and seeing the red numbers and probably being like, let's cut this.
No, I'm saying we're coming from the same side here. Like, they're not investing more from like their ownership group, but like supposedly like they could have kept operating for a bit longer, from what I've been told, if they didn't lose a key partner as well.
Oh.
So like the thing is, they lose a key partner. That's the majority of their funding.
Do we know who that partner is? Like, are we allowed to talk about that?
I don't have enough information. I've been the speculation that it was SoFi. SoFi was like, they literally did the thing with SoFi Stadium.
I don't even know what sponsors they had. I like when you look at the guys.
SoFi was their biggest one, I believe.
But isn't SoFi under the Cronky Group as well? So
yeah,
isn't that the same
own
thing?
it anyway.
But
the thing is that you can't. Once again, like you shouldn't. I don't think we should expect every ownership group to, you know, essentially nepotistically prop up its orgs with like its other organizations, right? Like, I think there's like benefit. There's the SoFi is still an independent company. Just because you're owned by Stan Kroenke doesn't mean Stan Kroenke should be like, oh, I own these two things, now you must sponsor them. Like, you know, there's all sorts of, there's a whole partnership scene there.
My point is they didn't get other sponsorships, they didn't get other partnerships outside of things that were under the Kroenke umbrella. Is where I was trying to go with that.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's because of Kroenke themselves pulled the plug, or if it's because SoFi is an independent entity, right? There's technically encapsulated. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter that much, but like there's technically is like different levels of like thought here. Like it's encapsulated company
because
in a way.
Running out of runway, it's like how, I mean, every business has a plan of how long they expect to run in the red for, what their actual runway is. This feels pretty sudden, and what you're saying with the whole they're still hiring and then suddenly the plug got pulled. Obviously, massive miscommunication in there somewhere. Like, sounds like it was a rug pulled out from under the Guard in some ways, where Kroenke's just like, I'm out. This is bad. It says a lot. I mean, they definitely have the capital to keep burning. I mean, they're not like some of these other esports orgs where, you know, it's Nadeshot trying to keep it going, and he has to find sponsors. I mean, Kroenke's he's rich as hell, so he could theoretically keep it going, but from a business standpoint, like you said, he's looked at the books, he's looked at the numbers, it's like it's not working out. The only question was like, oh, okay, esports is in a bit of a downturn. Do they feel like it wasn't worth the risk of just hanging out and seeing if they can get over the hurdle, and they just want to exit early? Or I don't know, you could also exit early and then see how things look in 3 to 4 years, and maybe the landscape is better to come back in. But
well, here's the thing, I kind of want to get your opinions on this as well, because like I think that one of the issues that esports is going through overall, obviously we're in a downturn economic just in the world, and esports is on the downsurge. But I feel like as a content creators, creation in general has sort of dwarfed esports and shown that you don't need to be in esports to sort of have that level of like value. Like, why would you not invest in a content creator right now instead of investing millions more in an esports organization, right? Tarek is a prime example of Tarek gets 100,000 viewers watching some of these games on VCT, but then VCT only gets 50K viewers, right? Like, why would you not just invest in someone like Tarek compared to investing in an esports team that is getting a small fraction of the viewership and ad revenue and screen time that a streamer and content creator is getting?
well, the answer is like, what do you actually want to achieve? Because usually when you own a sports team, and this goes towards traditional sports teams as well, which is like, it's like a hobby for billionaires. When you want to buy a football team, I don't know that they all expect to make a profit off it, but they do know that the value of that team will probably go up. I mean, there's the Michael Jordan Houston Rockets thing where I don't even think he puts that much effort into the team. It's not a very good team. He knows it. He doesn't care, but the valuation on the Houston Rockets has only risen since he's been there, and he probably hasn't even to do that much. So it
doesn't matter.
Who was it?
I guess Charlotte, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm not an NBA guy. The point is MJ has a team. He doesn't do much with it, and the value goes up anyway because the value of the slot is supposed to. That's how the franchise thing is supposed to work as well. And so when you look at like, this is why when I'm not going to shift topics here, but I'm just going to add in a little extra thing to bring it back to Overwatch League, where it's like, why the orgs. Are they happy with the tier 2 integration? Are they not? Is it devaluing their slot, etc., etc.? The reason why that matters is the franchise value is ultimately like the bottom line there, because even if you're supposed to be able to have that as an exit, you can still sell. The value is supposed to go up even if your team is doing poorly, all that kind of stuff, if the actual sport's doing well. So devaluing your franchise hurts the team owners and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, back to what you were saying, Scott. Like, well, what is the actual goal? If you want to run a sports team, you run a sports team. If you want to do content creators and stuff like that, like that's almost like a separate thing.
I think it's two separate things. I mean, if you invested in the Overwatch League and you bought a franchise, I doubt. And I mean, I don't know why I'm arguing this point, because I don't have any insight to what it's like being a billionaire. But you don't expect to flip that franchise spot within like the next 5 years, maybe like 10. But like, I think when you buy a literal franchise in something, and especially when you put a price tag of 20 million on it, you expect to hold on for that for like a few decades, because that's how long it generally takes to like build up something like this. When you look at like the NBA or the NFL, like they've been around for
traditional
like,
sports. I'd agree.
Years. Yeah.
For an esport, I don't know about a few decades, but
I don't. But what I'm saying is like the difference in perception. Like, I don't think people generally bought into the Overwatch League to like flip an asset like 3 years later, 5 years later. And so I think the 20 million buy-in,
5 years is reasonable.
kind of just like change the perception of like running the franchise. Like, does that make sense? Like, if the buy-in was $2 million, like, I think a lot of owners would have feel very differently compared to how they feel about it now. Because like, if they just bought in for 2 million, they were like, all right, we put in 2 million, but like, we're having a team, we enjoy having this team, it's a hobby, like you said, Avril.
Isn't that hindsight 2020 though, Johnny? It's like, well, yeah, I guess it could have been cheaper, but like,
I mean, at this point, it's a sunk cost fallacy. Like, you have to decide, well, okay, well, the 20 million, or actually, it's not gone because they actually haven't paid it. So, but
yeah, they haven't paid it.
what I'm saying is, I just don't think that like the immediate like return of investment. I don't think that was as expected by like team owners.
I don't think they
just think
expect
they
to
want
just
to see
flip
something.
it. But it's more like, you know, oh, if I don't want to be here, then I could at least sell for 20 mil again, or maybe slightly higher, because the value of the slots,
There would be,
slots is
yeah,
supposed to go
sure.
up.
There would be people
ideally.
lining up to at least take over to somewhat. But now
that
there's
never
no
happened, so-
liquidity. There's no one that like want to buy your franchise.
Okay, well, here's an interesting thing. Is this one of the issues that exists within esports? You know, I think Avril brings up an interesting point of like Michael Jordan and how people invest in like sports teams, because as much as it's not a good investment, over time it will eventually go up if you believe in the league and stuff like that. But is that the problem, that esports has people coming in from VC who, first of all, don't give a shit about esports? They just want to, they see the bubble, they see the market going up, and they're like, I want to invest in that and I want a piece of that pie. But then they don't care about the game. Like, they don't care about their teams. They don't care about the game. So therefore, they're relying on return on their investment to justify why they're doing this, because there is no other reason that they're doing it. And now we've had a downturn for the last 4 years.
That's a lot of businesses, though, Scott. I mean, you use that to describe a lot of businesses out there.
Yeah, but like that's sort of what I'm saying, is that esports isn't profitable. So it's like, well, that's the problem that we're having as a whole, is that people invest a lot of money expecting return, and then there's just nothing coming out of it.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's why people are leaving.
You've sort of activated my trap card here.
Oh shit! Okay, oh no.
You've activated my trap card because I think there's a kind of disingenuous / uninformed conversation about like the VC element of esports, because there is some very real concerns. I think about specifically about the Overwatch League, Johnny. Going back to your point, I don't think anyone remembers or keeps this up, but like, remember that Morgan Stanley report that came out about like the projected valuations of like Overwatch League, and it was like, in 2024, it'll be putting out $200 million of revenue or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I see Sir Scoots tweet about it every 6 months.
I know, yeah, he talks about, but the point being is that I think that's also why for the Overwatch, so specifically on the Overwatch League side of your point, teams expected probably to be able to hold on to it for 5-ish years or something and be like, this is going to go up in value based off these sort of analytics from people that really did not know what the hell they were talking about. And secondly, and also might have been oversold on certain things as well. Bobby Kotick. But then, and then secondly, also there's a separate conversation to be had about like, yes, is that bad? But like, a lot of people say that it's like, okay, well, VC entering esports is the reason why esports is having a downturn. And it's like, okay, wait, let's take a step back here. So without VC money though entering esports, where do you think esports is at this moment? Like, where do you think that esports is currently at without the VC money? Because everyone would be making like what? Like, because also some of the most endemic, some of the people that have relied arguably the least on that VC capital infusion that have very much been like event-based, like if we take, for example, BTS, been around for 11 years
We'll get to
doing
that.
production.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to get to that? Is that on the run of show?
No, but I will get to it. I have it open.
Not a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the point is like, I think people conflate the two. It's like, well, if VC money didn't enter the equation, what do you think the average salary is for a player right now? What do you think the average salary is for staff? What do you think the level of
people in the Twitch chat or YouTube chat, a lot of people in the YouTube chat, they're like, oh, I wish we could just go back to like when we embraced competition and it was all about the competition. And I'm like, do you know what you're wishing for?
You're waiting for everyone to be in a basement? You want everyone to be in a basement? There's one monitor, two dudes on their controllers.
It's
like
still competition. It's not like we don't have competition. I don't really understand that.
Here's the thing, because I think the issue that you're talking about is, I agree, we don't want to go back to the grassroots where no one's making any money. Yeah, sure. We look back at it with like passion of like, it was so great, but you know what also is great? Money. And, you know, people have that now and it's been nice. But I think VC money and a lot of what happened in 2016, 2017, 2018, when we had this like massive growth, it overinflated everything to make it an unsustainable model, so that we went through this kind of economic downturn that no one can stabilize. And what that did is things like BTS probably would have continued to run because they would have run at a stable point. But because of this injection of VC money and the inflation of everything, BTS had to overpay and sort of overvalue everything compared to the rest of the market.
Are we getting to BTS now? Because I have some thoughts on that, but I think it's actually not.
Let's move on. Like, let's not touch BTS but the point I'm trying to make here is that I think VC money inflated these salaries, right? It inflated all this. But the point being is that like that salaries never would have been there to begin with. And secondly, also, it still wouldn't have ever changed. Like, why would half these orgs even exist without, like, do you think so many of these orgs, like even with VC money, how many have made it to this point? How many have fallen? How many have fallen apart? Only a couple of the original big dogs are still around. You know, you got your TSM, you got your Cloud9, you got FaZe, like, and they've all had to restructure massively. It's not really an issue to me. It's like, yes, would esports have been more sustainable? But what is sustainability? If our goal is like, it's only to have the competition, right? But you still need people to work on the competition. You still need people to like compete, right? And if everyone's cool with like, at this point in the game, if the average player like at the top of their game made like $50,000 a year, and like you have staff all making like 20, 30K or something like that, then like, yeah, I think if we didn't inflate that, esports would be in a very sustaciable spot where everyone would just be working for peanuts, right? And that's fair.
Peanuts, but like I just think the issue is that. Do you think? I guess my question then, Avast, is: do you think that esports overall has benefited from so much money coming into the scene? Yes, it's inflated everything, but it's gotten us to a point that we never could have gotten to, just through natural growth. So, do you think this is a necessary evil of the fast growth that esports had?
I don't think esports. Is...
people are losing their jobs and everyone's losing money right now. Like that is.
Yeah, but the thing is, they wouldn't have had their jobs to begin with.
Exactly.
So, like, what does it matter? Like, to me, it's like kind of a net. It's like, if without that money, do you think 2/3 of the people in this industry would be employed? Would have been employed without that money? No.
Nope.
There's no way they would have had a job. Like, the thing is, esports is still like nothing. It's in the grand scheme of content and numbers, like. No one, probably all of us would not, well, maybe me at this point, because technically I'm the most divorced from it, but like at this point, like none of us would fucking have a job. Like no one would be making any money right here without this. Like you guys you'd be lucky to be making minimum wage. Like the point being is that like the VC money is what allowed people to work in the industry. It's like, and that's why I find it very disingenuous when I hear these conversations, because like everyone, I understand why people are like, wow, all the money's going away. And it's like, okay, well, what if the money just never entered in the first place? Like we'd be back to square one. You know, like it wouldn't
still be in the dark ages.
I think the money, okay, if you're talking about like, you know, where we got to at the end of this cycle of VC money and, you know, investing in all this, I think, you know, esports has learned at least a few lessons from this. You know, when it comes to specifically like revenue models and, you know, what type of systems work. So, you know, a lot of people will probably look at the Overwatch League and, you know, we'll see where we are in 2 to 3 years, but like Valiant quickly pivoted from like, well, Overwatch League, people are buying in, they're buying franchises, they're paying money to the league. And then quickly Riot were like, well, we're actually going to give you some stipends, right? To actually run some shit for us. And then you just gotta like fulfill some obligations and like we'll pay you like a stipend to help us out. So I think there's been some, you know, revolutionizing there where we actually went into franchise models instead of just like open tournaments all the time, because that's how orgs wanted to feel like kind of safe in their model. And then also we've gone from, hey, the teams are buying into a franchise league to now Valorant, which is like, well, we're going to help you out with stipends to help run stuff because we want a legitimate product. We want legitimate teams. We want the best of the best to be in our league, but we also recognize that like if we give you some money, it's going to make you have a better time. So, you know, that's been a big shift from like, you know, just 8 years ago where like there was all open tournaments and it was all qualification for stuff and not really invited teams
on the VCT stuff. As far as I'm aware, the stipends are not anywhere near enough to actually cover even basic salaries of the place.
Not even close.
Well,
so,
yeah, they're not even close. They don't even cover a roster.
Realistically, the stipends are like I don't want to say it's a pittance, but there's not even close. Secondly to that, the operating costs of those franchise teams as partnership teams in Valorant still fucking high, monstrously high, higher than Overwatch League teams. Why? Because they're doing full LAN seasons where they're doing all the matches out of a studio in LA in the Riot Studios or in Berlin or wherever in Korea, right? You have to imagine you're a team from Thailand. Now you have to set up a base in Korea. You have to do all the visas. You have to put all your players up. You have to do all the accommodation. You're paying mega salaries as well. Salaries in Valorant are giga inflated.
Already, right?
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Like the average player for like a tier 1 org is probably making like $200,000, you know, like, which is pretty high. And that's on the low end.
$1 million offer.
Yeah, Ye was like 7-figure.
He already had a 7-figure offer. He didn't take it. But my point is the operating costs of these partnership teams in Valorant are monstrous. I guarantee you it is way
All right,
way
well,
more
that's
expensive
their
to run
fault.
that team than Overwatch 2.
If you're Riot,
It
you're like,
is.
well, what the fuck? You can't, you know. Like,
But the
come on,
difference is
guys.
Riot is giving them extra monetization options as well. And because it's a very popular game content wise, for content teams, you can at least actually gain value that way. It's still dumb. At the end of the day, like it's still like people that overinvest in Valorant, I still think are going to be bit. And that's what happened with Guard too. Like part of the reason Guard fell apart is because their Valorant team was a money sink, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
They didn't get
it's
into
not
franchising,
obviously but even if they had,
Even if they
paying,
did, they
like,
would have spent more.
big
They would have spent
salary.
more money. If
Yeah, they
made
potentially
franchising.
could have spent more money even. You know, like there's a lot of things that go into that where like the point being is that like and my original point is more so like the cost hasn't gone down for this. And like yes, VC money helped drive it up, but it's up to the players at hand to like kind of equalize. I think there was like one guy that got universally roasted and he was wrong because he was kind of like it was really dumb, but he was like a dude that made a tweet. He's like, why are we so mad at the businesses of the world when it's really the players are the only one to get the profit from esports?
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
their
yeah.
fault. And it's like, okay, you're wrong, but also you're not wrong. Like because technically, like
It's true as
you're
well.
Players
because
getting paid, right?
technically,
It's kind of true.
like the players are the ones that get paid the most consistently. They generally often like yes, it's built upon them, but the real tenets of like sustainability require them to be more than just people that show up and play a game. They need to like make content, they need to just tweet, they need to like they need to be available for deliverables, and a lot of times they're just not interested in doing that, and there's not really a culture of accountability. And on top of that, every party from agencies, everyone else is obviously pushing up like salary. We need more salary. But it's like, well, what's our return on playing? Why would we pay a player $1 million, $500,000? Like, what the hell are we getting from that? You know? And so I just think that's like a whole big inflated thing. And that's why when we go into like the VC money is all the issue, it's like I see this from like two parties typically, not always. I think there are very real concerned reasons, but one from a group of people that have either farmed all their money from the VCs and now don't need any more money from VCs, or two from people that are so independently wealthy, or part of that group is also people that are too independently wealthy that it doesn't matter if the money leaves, and they're like, or two, just fans. People were like, if everyone loses their jobs and we're all back to playing in basements and such, like that doesn't really matter because they just want to watch the competition, right? That's all they want to care about. But the competition doesn't exist without, to at least the extent that you enjoy it without that money, you know? So I think it's sometimes disingenuous.
I'm gonna say like VC is not the problem here. The VC only did, in my opinion, good things with esports and raised esports up to a certain standard. It didn't hinder it.
Okay, yeah, no,
Let me
okay.
back it up.
Yeah.
Wait, don't step in just yet. And we're in a better place with VC than we would have been without VC, honestly. The problem with the situation in esports is not the VC money that got put in. It's the fact that the rest of the industry never sort of caught up in terms of the profitability. I'll even say like your things like viewership, sponsorship money as well. One of the pitfalls of esports is the fact that what are your real revenue streams? What are your real monetization streams? It mostly comes down to sponsorships for teams. You can do merch, but unless you're 100 Thieves, you're not really doing that much merch. Content is a discussion. We already had a discussion about content where it's like hard to build up from nothing. You need big brands, big names already. So again, if you're 100 Thieves, you can sign some big creators. That's probably the way to go. And even then, like, they all lose a partner and they'll have to cut a bunch of staff anyway. What most teams end up relying on is sponsorship money. And there's a couple problems here. One is that sponsorship money is drawn from the same pool of marketing budget allocated for both esports teams and streamers, content creators, YouTubers. So when you are a professional esports organization and you are walking up to Logitech or whoever saying, hey, I would like you to be a sponsor, that company, Logitech or whoever, they can look at anybody. Their one marketing budget, whatever that number is, it could be 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever it is. They don't have to spend it on you. They can spend it everywhere. You are literally competing against streamers as an esports organization for the same dollars in marketing. And we've already had the conversation about the fact that, well, why would you go for an esports team when the streamer probably gives you way better returns? So you have to already have your greater sponsorship pool kind of cut up because of the fact that it competes with streaming. Beyond that as well, you have inflated salaries within players. I think the rest of salaries weren't probably bad in terms of staff. I don't think there were any grossly overpaid staff, maybe only at the executive level. But when you have players that are asking for 7-figure salaries, and I'm not just talking about here, I'm talking about people in League of Legends as well, anybody that's gone up there, even high sixes, if you're going above 300, 400k in salary. Like, that's insane. Those players that are often getting paid anywhere north of 400k, they're not bringing that value back in at all. I mean, there's a story out there about if you pay a player 7 figures, $1 million for a salary, your entire sponsorship is that money. Like, your one sponsor is paying you 1 million total, and that entire sponsorship money is just going to one player salary. That's a legitimate thing that happens for some teams. So it's actually ridiculous how we got to that position. So I think some of the money was spent stupidly, and that's not from the VC side. That's from the operations side, from the teams itself. They spent the money and they paid ridiculous salaries for players, and hard to be profitable when sponsorship ends up being your only real revenue stream and everything else is just too difficult to get to. That's how we lost all the money.
And yeah, and I think we all agree to some degree. I think there's somewhere in the middle of like esports would be better off with less VC money. Obviously, having investment, gave us all jobs, and that is important. But I completely agree with Avril. It's like a domino effect of, because there's so much VC money coming in, people are able to spend so much money on players, but there is no way that investment in a player can get returned for like a sponsorship. As you said, Logitech's like, you don't get that many viewership. We don't get that much, minutes watched. There's not enough in value for us to offset the cost of how much you're paying your players. And I think this is my big worry for Valorant as a whole, is they're making the exact same issue. I think less so with their league, but more so with their teams and how much they're paying their players, of like that the Overwatch League had, the LCS had, right? And where the LCS and the Overwatch League are paying the price of how much everyone was paying their players, how much expected investment and growth they're expecting for their league. And it's just causing this problem, and it's just downswinging right now. So at the end of the day, yes, it's great that we've had money in esports. Everyone in this call has profited because of it. A lot of people overall have profited for it. But at the end of the day, we need to come down to earth, and there needs to be a realignment, and we need to get back to, more of the mean of what the value of esports actually is. Because it's not like esports is overall a bad investment. It is still an entertainment product. It's still very profitable. It's still a great thing, and people are always going to love it. People love to make pictures and tweets about how much passion there is for esports. You look at Brazilian fans for the VCT right now, they get so prideful when it comes to their teams, but it just needs to realign, in my opinion. And hopefully we see
can
less.
They start paying then?
So?
Can they start paying then?
Who start paying?
The fucking fans.
Well, yeah, no, but, and this is the problem with the. This is the problem overall. The fans don't buy stuff. It's true.
Are they paying any money? What's the average spend of an esports fan?
Yeah, they spend nothing. They invest nothing into esports.
All right, what do people spend money on in traditional sports? Tickets to games? I mean, the NBA is like a huge source of our revenue.
Also, they pay for TV packages for the media rights of things as well. Like, you can't watch it anywhere else. Like, it's like that's the whole. But also, people hate it because of like blackout games and stuff like that. Because people do hate that occurs. But that's what pays the bills in professional sports leagues, though, as well. That's what pays the bills. But that's a whole separate conversation about. And that's also why Valorant is in fact doing it better, because their monetization for teams is not based off esports expenditure. It's like, it's based off skins. And the skins are like, and the skins is how they deliver value. Now, granted, do they make skins based off their events, right? Yeah. But it's still like an independent product that is being delivered for someone to use that anyone can enjoy. You don't have to be an esport fan to like a skin that's made for champs, right? You don't have to like a skin that like also is like in collaboration. If an org makes a skin, it's not specifically because you only like that org, right? It's just an independent product. So that's where like a monetization thing does do right. I also think the other, I have to loop back to the other problem I have with like, let's get rid of the VC money, is that a lot of those same people that are like, we need to get rid of this VC money, are also the same people that are going to say publishers controlling esports is bad. Well, guess who has all the fucking money and clout once all the VC's money? Guess who has all the decision making? Publishers. Publishers gets to pick everything that happens with the esport they run once all the VC money is gone, because then there's no one to be. Yeah, but the point being is that like there's literally no, but that means there's no other parties they have to answer to. None. No other parties they can answer. None that are else invested have at least put in money where they can at least be like, I'm going to threaten a lawsuit to you type of thing. Like any entities at all that had any clout they could answer to are now gone forever without the orgs, if it's only publishers. And yes, they're already still very much in control, but still.
I'm going to come in some controversial shit right now. The people are not going to like me for saying this, but it's the truth. Esports being free to or completely free to watch in its entirety causes a lot of issues with monetization and profitability. Look at traditional sports. You have to pay to watch most traditional sports. You want to watch UFC, got to pay for it. Want a Formula One, got to pay for it. I don't know about NFL. I think NBA, you got to pay for as well. There's so many ways to monetize there. People are spending crazy amounts of money to buy tickets to go to these things as well. So, you know, the average spend of a traditional sports viewer / fan is just so much higher. They pay subscriptions to view their sport, and people refuse to do that in esports. And part of that is, I'm going to say it as well, publishers' fault. It is their fault because they forced esports to be free when we've had examples in the
They
past.
don't force it to be free. If they tried to make people pay for esports, they would riot. Like, straight up.
MLG tried
they
that
forced it to be
several
free,
times.
and I can prove it right now.
No, MLG tried.
I can prove how they force it to be free because the profitability, where the money comes in, how they make back the money for the publisher POV. This is especially true for Wright because they're a private company as well, and not a public company. They just got to make it back on MTX. They can afford to run esports into the red. Esports can easily lose money. Yeah, put on a world championship, put a giant big ass dragon on stage, whatever. Don't care how much it costs. As long as you make back that money in MTX, you're covered. You're fine. And how do you maximize MTX revenue? You make esports free. You force it to be free, and you get the largest amount of eyeballs possible because it's a marketing exercise. The problem I have is, and this kind of comes into where Connor brought up the group of people that says like, oh, publishers having monopoly over esports is a problem. I kind of agree. I'm a little bit. I got a foot in the door in that camp. I'm afraid because it's a conflict where if you want to look at esports and use it as a marketing exercise, that directly conflicts with how traditional sports is and their avenues of monetization. And, you know, credit to the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is not a marketing exercise for the Overwatch game. And that's easily provable because you look at the fact that this Blizzard is so, you know, the developers, they're kind of hands, you know, they there's not a lot of overlap there. They try to be pretty separate as much as possible. Overwatch League is trying to exist on its own as its own product with its own P&L and all of that kind of stuff. It's trying to just exist as actual esports. It's not a marketing thing for Overwatch the game like the Riot games are. So, and the other thing is like, I remember back, there's a story for, this is Champions Korea before LCK, which is the League of Legends thing that Monty and Doro are on. They were making something like over $1 million a year in sub money for paid subscription. And you had to subscribe to the channel. I think it was on Twitch to view the VOD. So it wasn't true pay-per-view. Like you didn't have to pay to watch. You had to pay to watch the VODs, which I think is monetization as well that could have been explored. And Riot shut that down. Told OGN they can't do that anymore. So what I'm saying, it was forced to be free. It literally was forced to be free.
I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I just the discussion about like paywalls and shit around like watching the game. I just think like it's out of the question because like the way you consume sports and the way you consume media has just like shifted drastically over like, you know, the past couple of decades. Like people, you know, there used to be huge competition when I grew up with like, oh, there's like this TV box that they have the Premier League and like they have this sports league, and then you can pick another TV box and they have this league and they have the rights to something else. And so like you have to pick and choose. And that's where like, okay, well, we commit $150. I don't know, it was probably like, yeah, $100 a month to buy this TV package that includes the rights to this deal. And that's how you can generate return. Like, I think we just moved away from that kind of like viewing model. Like
we
people
have
expect
now.
things to be
We
free.
have
Yeah,
now.
so
It's
we're
too
never
late
going
now.
back. I don't think we're going back to like paywalls
My
and
point
stuff.
is,
Now,
we shouldn't have gone away from that in the first place. We shouldn't have shut that off. But unfortunately, this is where the conflict is. If you're a publisher, it's a conflict because like, well, this is a marketing exercise. Why would I put a paywall up? I want all the eyeballs possible. It's a marketing exercise. Of course, I want everyone to watch.
Yeah.
That's a direct conflict with what sports is.
Yeah,
well,
I mean
okay.
that's fair, but also at the same time, like then we've entered the singularity, Kevin, because the singularity has now gone. Esports doesn't exist without the publisher. So like it's like we've entered the singularity here. Is like why would they? Because otherwise, if they can't use it as a marketing tool, why the fuck would they even have it? Why would they even let it
And
like,
that is actually a huge question that I wanted to ask.
They have it as an
because,
actual
like,
sport.
Now it's almost like up to Riot Games and it's up to Blizzard at some point to put a value on their product, so on the Overwatch League and on the VCT, and decide how much money do we want to spend on these product of ours to try and encourage people to stick around, to encourage teams to invest in our league and like try to make a return on this. And so I think that what I wanted to say earlier about how we like develop these franchise models, maybe the VCT money isn't enough now, the incentive isn't enough now to support some of these teams, but it's at least like opened the door for that to be an option moving forward. And I think we've seen, you know, interviews this past offseason in the Overwatch League where like owners or general managers are like, hey, you know, like we'd actually appreciate more incentive from the Overwatch League in running our teams. I believe, was there a report about how the teams got some help during COVID or something? No, they paused. They paused the payments.
They paused all the payments, and also they think they got some money as well.
Yeah.
They got some money.
And so I think that is just going to get further exaggerated moving forward, and teams will be like, hey, like this is probably how much
But that's still the
money we
publisher
need to.
choosing this is a marketing expense that we can write this off on and be like, we want to leave.
Yeah.
But that's the point,
And I think
right?
that's
It's
the
like,
direction we combined with MTX skins and like all this shit now, and that is like the revenue model moving forward. Teams are moving away from you know, them investing into the league because they want to own the slot versus the
teams make money?
The developers actively choosing how much like money they want to invest in teams to stick around.
When the publisher says, I want to use this, I want to treat esports as a marketing exercise, I want to make my money off MTX, where does a team make money? If you're an esports organization, how do you get a cut of that pie?
And exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like the stipends and incentives, I think are going to get elevated because I think teams will argue that like
they will have zero control over their revenue though, is what Kevin's saying. Because as a team, if you're like, I need Daddy Riot to give me the money for me to exist, do you not see the inherent problem there for like as an organization that wants to be a business? Like, and even then, the money might not be enough to cover it. Like, if your goal is like esports will be profitable once Riot gives us more money. You see, that seems to be an issue.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
you
a
think?
I mean, you're providing a service in my eyes. Like you're providing a service to them.
What service? Why I'm like, you are providing a service, but like they're not. Why would Riot continue to amp up their interest in you when like Riot doesn't need you? Like they're like you're nice. You're nice. Like you're cool to have around, but why would they keep you? Like they can just
here's
put
the
more money
difference
in
between
content.
esports and let's say the NBA or NFL. First of all, no one owns football, no one owns basketball, the sport. It's just anyone can pick up a ball and play. Don't give a fuck. No one owns that. Second of all, when you look at those leagues, that league is like basically jointly owned by all the franchise teams. They all get a split of it. They don't have to fight against a publisher or another entity that like, you know, oh, we're gonna get all this money and this is our marketing thing, and then you do whatever, and then okay, there's a rev share, and it's like, okay, we're gonna get a sponsor and you can have some of that. By the way, here's a fun fact about sponsorships at that level as well. This is actually a fun thing that was brought up in the GG Recon GM panel with like Nuki and Pri and Karen and all those guys when they talked about it. In the Riot leagues like LEC and LCS and stuff like that, because they are not city based, and this was Kieran Thels, who's the VP of Esports for Washington Justice, because it's not city based, everybody in LEC and LCS and although they're fighting for the same sponsors. So if you're a losing team there, you actually can't get sponsors. If you're SK Gaming or you're FlyQuest, you're one of the bottom teams, and you're not G2 or somebody, you can't even get sponsors. Whereas at least in the Overwatch League, if you're a local team and you're from Boston, you're Washington, you can activate local sponsors. That's actually something they got going for them, which is quite nice. And the other thing as well is when you look at the big sponsors that like the VCT Broadcast and stuff like that have, they already have Twitch Prime, they already have Secret Labs, they have all of this kind of stuff. Do those brands necessarily then want to sponsor a team as well? They already sponsor the broadcast. I mean, everyone's cannibalizing each other. So when the teams basically have to just rely on sponsorships, and all the sponsors are cannibalized by streamers, and the actual broadcast itself has already a bunch of those sponsors, like what do you have left? And then maybe you're a middle of the pack or lower team, you have to fight against the best teams for the same sponsors. You just eat shit. You just eat shit if you're one of those teams.
Yeah, and then the same thing. The only way that you can differentiate yourself, which is why I think the content team aspect that we talked about at the beginning is so important. The only way that you can differentiate yourself as an org to get sponsors that aren't getting taken by the main broadcast or by a team that's more successful than you is views. what can you give KPI wise for your viewership numbers, retention, your market, like what can you and your deliverables, like what can you give to an organization then for their marketing budget for like what you can deliver? That's the only thing that would differentiate an org, which is why the content team is more important to that, right? But the problem then is also then we go back to the other problem of like pro players don't want to be content creators. Content creators have bigger platforms. They spend more time creating content. And, you know, we're into this. And also content creators are not typically, like big ones, are not typically tied to one IP. A pro player is typically tied to a single IP, and they don't always make the switch to another IP, right? So like they're more universal. So we're in the maelstrom right now. We're looking at it. We're looking at the maelstrom. And I ask of you, like, what the hell is the solution there? And there's not really an easy one. And this is my final point on this subject, and everyone else can add whatever. When we talk about this is going back to the VC money. I know the VC money inflated everything, but who's in charge? Who's in charge? Who are the GMs? Who are the VPs of teams that were spending all the money on players?
Yes. Yep. 100%.
And it was endemic esports people doing it. It was. And the thing is that like, yes, they got the money to allow them to do it, but like we did it. We did it to ourselves. It was us. It was us. We have no one to blame but
can't
ourselves.
blame the money. If you spent the money poorly, that's your
If you
fault.
spent
That's
the
not
money
fault.
and like you're giving your friends and your bros and all the people you used to compete with, if you're giving them tons of money, that is your own damn fault. And like that's like it's us. As Taylor Swift said, I am the problem. It's me. Okay, like, and that's like people need like that's why I also find it so just like ridiculous when I hear this sanctimonious conversation from some people that are like so removed from like the web and flow of esports at this point, because like that are independently fine, because like bitch, you were there, you were part of it, you did it, like your friends were some of the ones, like so it's just ridiculous.
I have two solutions, by the way. And one of them I think is fairly easy. I think, look, if MTX really is the way forward,
And then we're gonna move on, by the way.
the teams, that's fine. I think that we're about there anyway. The teams need to get a way bigger cut of that. The teams need to be able to get in on the in-game MTX and the publisher MTX with way bigger of a cut, whatever that looks like.
But didn't you
Again,
just
going
come
back
to the
to-
conclusion that the teams are the problem anyway? Like, so you're saying that the teams deserve more money in this situation? Or you're saying so that they don't rely on
No.
VC money?
I'm trying to open up revenue streams. I'm trying to answer the question that needs to be answered is, how do the teams get paid? This guy's toast came into esports. He made a Valiant team, and then he watches the guy disintegrate, and he's like, guys, how does esports make money? And how does esports make money? And on one hand, he's like kind of joking. On the other hand, he's fucking serious. He doesn't know how esports makes money, and it's true. How the fuck does esports make money? So I'm trying to answer the question. The question that always needs to be answered is, how do the teams get their money back? Because we know how the publishers, we know how Blizzard and Riot and all them get their money back. Especially Riot. Blizzard's still working on it, but how do the teams make it? And I'm trying to open up revenue streams, and one of them is to go through the MTX, introduce way more team-based MTXs, give a way higher percentage cut to the teams, all that kind of stuff. The other one is, and this is the one that's going to have all the swords pointed at me. This is the one that always gets the fans rolled up. This is going to be a triggering comment, warning you beforehand. Fans need to start paying up. They do, because the average spend of esports fans is abysmally low. And like, okay, look, you can watch esports for free. You can't pay a wallet now. I get it. That's fine. But at the same time as well, like, there's some on the consumer side of things. It's like, it's so free. It's so the biggest winners are the consumers, the fans. They get everything for free, and it's great for the fans. The teams aren't making any fucking money, and esports is fucking dying. The teams have to exit. They just can't find money. You by the way, you wonder why. We haven't even gone to the BTS stuff, by the way, which I think is a whole separate.
We're not
Oh,
going to spend all the
God.
time on it because I'm over
There's
this.
so much time.
You wonder
that.
why ESL has to take Saudi money, and these guys have to get money. All these crypto sponsors, and FTX comes in, because who the fuck else is paying? Where else is their money?
I don't know,
People have
man.
to go where the money
I
is.
think you need to provide better things for fans to pay for. You can't just be like Vancouver Titans to be like,
And here's a couple
buy
things.
our
and here's a couple
jersey,
things.
please. It's the
Let me
only
provide.
way
So
to
let me
spend
provide.
money on
Let me
us.
give you an example. I think the command center was a good opening move, but
The All Access Pass was great, but it was
However, it didn't make
they
enough.
had spent so much money in the Overwatch League to like make that great.
Exactly.
They should have found the middle ground.
Exactly. There needed to be a middle ground there, but I think it was the correct movement. You need a premium model. I think you should monetize VODs. I don't think VODs should be free. Sorry, fans. It's got to be said. OGN used to monetize VODs. They made hella good money from that. That needs to come back.
The replay viewer, probably.
Maybe.
I just don't think you're ever going to be able to make that model. And like, yes, I agree
Cool.
with you,
Then
but
then how do the teams
we
get paid?
exist in a world where we have on-demand content for free everywhere, right? Not just esports, everywhere, right? YouTube, TikTok, blah 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 blah. There's and people are just going to watch streamers, right? Like I understand you want to monetize, but it's not a realistic model.
Scott, and yet people pay tier 3 subs to Pokemon. People pay Netflix subscriptions. Apple, Disney Plus, whatever, all that kind of shit. Spotify. If people are paying, you got fucking people paying God knows how much money on OnlyFans. People pay for subs. People pay for shit. People will pay a $5 sub to a streamer they can watch for free anyway. Okay, people are paying. They're just not paying.
I think there's something there. I don't want to fully discredit you because I do think there's something there. Like even the interviews with Danny after the broadcast with the All Access Pass. Like I genuinely thought that was a good concept. Like you have people staying around for the end of day interviews. The thing was, and I don't exactly remember, but being in that control room in 2019, don't think the viewers were great. And in general, it felt like the vibe were just like, why are we here still doing this interview when like no one really cares for it? So it was a little bit like put on like a pillar of just like, oh, this is this great all access pass. But like in reality, I don't think the conversion was.
You got to add more value. You got
it.
to add more. You got to reduce the cost from the dev side of like how expensive it is to put out the all access pass, and increase the value by monetizing the VODs. By having.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like there needs to be better
by the way,
shit to
season
buy.
1 watch point.
You can't just be mad at
season
fans
1
for buying
season
shit
1
when
watch
there's
point shouldn't have been
garbage
free.
stuff.
Season 1 watch point should not have been free. That should have been under all access because that was like top tier content. That, by the way, was mega. That fucking show was so
what do you
expensive.
do when people don't pay for it, right? Like, so let's say we run this thing. People aren't paying for Watchpoint. You're investing this product, but you say
We
the
need
quality
VC money.
of
We need a better
Watchpoint needs.
runway.
Yeah, that's it. You're saying Watchpoint needs to be better, but people aren't paying for it. So how do you invest money into it until people start paying for it?
Did not say that. Did not say that. It doesn't need to be better. It already was. In fact, if anything, they should reduce the cost.
But they don't. You're saying they don't have VC money. How are they paying to run Watchpoint at a high quality to incentivize people to buy it?
How did I say there was no VC? The VC money is there. I never said there was no VC money. This is how. That's what I'm trying to say is this is how you spend your VC money and how you monetize esports. You need to dig into. Okay, you can't pay per view. Let's establish you can't pay per view anyway. So what's the next best step if you cannot pay per view? You have a premium model. What does a premium model look like? You have to add offerings. So I'm saying monetize VODs, have content like Watchpoint from season 1, which was super expensive, which was given up for free, by the way. That could have gone under the all access pass. That was already paid for. That was already gone up. That was already budgeted. That was already executed. But they gave that shit for free. That could have gone under the all access pass. All of the top content, all the interviews, what you guys remember the seagull thing where he's like driving and shit, and Malik's interviewing people. That could have.
Oh God,
all access.
those things were heinously expensive to produce as well.
You
Exactly.
guys don't even want to know how much that cost.
The point is everything, if you want to watch esports for free, and then all you get is a literal esport and nothing else. You get nothing else. You just watch the game, boom, done. You want anything else? You go all access pass because you have to find a ground there. Otherwise, if it's all just fucking free, then you're not going to make money.
I agree.
And
you
people
kind of
pulling
have to
out.
find something, but it's very scary because you're investing a lot of money with uncertain returns. Like if
Sounds like
Valorant
you
did
just
that now
described
for
all
VCT
esports. You just
in
described
Lock-in,
esports in
like,
general.
Yeah, but
Well, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand that criticism because what Avril's saying here is the money's already spent. We've spent the money making Watchpoint.
But we
the
literally
money's
made
been
this shit
spent.
free.
I'm just saying that like he's saying that it needs to be like then monetized.
Okay,
like you just need to.
okay, so here's what happens. You spend this money, you've made Watchpoint, right? And then you're like, but you have to spend the $15 to get the command center, right? And you also get Watchpoint now. And then people are like, well, I don't want to watch Watchpoint, so we're not going to watch Watchpoint. So let's say you get 1,000 viewers on Watchpoint, right? Which isn't really going to offset the cost of running Watchpoint or any of that kind of stuff. And then they eventually go, well, we're not getting return on Watchpoint because you guys aren't paying enough to watch it. We're just going to cancel Watchpoint.
It's a combined thing.
But how is that any different than now?
It's like a Netflix subscription. Some shows probably get no viewership, but some get better. It's the entire offering. The offering of Netflix is the whole thing, the whole shebang. So it's not living and dying on one thing. So when I look at a subscription model like All Access Pass, it's the whole offering from top to bottom, the entire thing, not just Watchpoint, not just.
But then you're hurting the overall product of the Overwatch League because you're not providing shoulder content or any additional content. You're just providing the base thing, right? So then you're hurting your overall product to generate a bit of revenue from a small number of subscription users.
If you give everything away for free, that also hurts esport. That also hurts the league. That also hurts everybody because now you're not monetizing.
I mean, like I'm kind of on. I will say I don't know if that's necessarily the right method here, right? Because I agree with you, Scott, in a way. It was like, because like if you hurt the product, that's also bad. But also, what the product is really good, what are you getting out of it now? For the product being good.
Well, okay. I'm not saying that what we're currently doing is perfect, right? Like, we can all agree that's why we are here, right? I just don't think that if you're trying to, like, I don't think Avril's solution is realistic, because I don't think you're going to be able to get the consumer to pay for a premium product. I just don't think you're going to be able to do that. Maybe that's
a problem with consumers on our side, because the sports fans pay, the Formula One fans pay. Esports fans don't pay. That's what it comes back
they
to.
also have larger audience. Like, let's
much larger audience.
You know, in stage 4 or whatever this year, we had like 20,000, 25,000 viewers at one point, and they're like, okay, well, how many of our 25,000 people are going to pay like $15?
Season 1, we had 200K concurrents easily.
Right. I mean, I feel like it's stupid of me to be like, that's just so in the past that like we gotta think now. Like, what's best for us now?
That's when we had Watchpoint. That's when we had all access.
No, but that's when Overwatch was at its peak, and we had a premium product, and we were paying for Twitch, and we were like, there was so much money going out. Like, we burnt so much money.
Dude,
in season
that
1
Twitch
and
deal,
season 2.
holy shit.
There is no amount of consumer money, unless you got all 200,000 people to pay for the command center, that would ever offset the cost.
So how does esports make money then? Because this is what it comes back down to.
I think it needs to downscale.
If we knew that question, or the answer to that
if
question.
someone had the answer to that question, it just needs to downscale, and we need to just start rebuilding to a more sustainable level. And
okay. So is everyone here cool then with losing their job?
No, I think it's not.
But that's downscale. That's downscaling, man. That's downscaling.
No. See, here's my thing. I'm not saying like everyone loses their job. I'm not saying esports goes away. Does everyone's salaries need to go down? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I want that to happen? No. But that is like the realistic answer. We can't just keep setting fire to money and then being like, yeah, this is fine. I don't know why this isn't working, right?
Also, just to like frame it for like the listeners and stuff, I think, you know, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think we're all pretty existential about our jobs and our time in this space. It's not like we're sitting here on, you know, fucking ivory tower just like, yeah, we should totally keep our jobs, but everyone else shouldn't. It's like, no, I think we're all realized that we're all in the same boat in esports. And like, while we currently you know, have had a job this past year, like our future is uncertain, and like our family's uncertain, and this is stuff we have to think about all the fucking time. So
Scott, I think we're just coming in from two different angles. I'm coming in from the angle of in what ways can we make more money, and you're coming in from how do we save money. And that's not wrong. I think you got to do both. You got to do both. It can't just be let's downscale and spend less money. How do you make money? You still got to answer how you got to make money. That is the ultimate question at the end of the day. Downscale or no?
Yeah. So pretty much what it seems like the conclusion we arrived to, it's fucked.
Yeah.
So
doesn't have to be.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna require some we're gonna have to be, like Scott says, we're gonna have to make some cutbacks. But I don't think viewers understand what cutbacks really mean to make this sustainable.
I don't know about you guys, but people are sometimes just like, oh, it was great pre-Overwatch League. It was fantastic. And like, I can't exactly remember. I think I made like $2,000 a month for my player contract or some shit. Like, and if you're American...
And you were on the high end. By the way.
Yeah, and I was on the high end. Bro, when I got my Misfits deal, I was like, holy shit, I'm making the bag. And it wasn't even league minimum for the Overwatch League these days. So like, you know, and then you know, I was fine because in general, I think European wages are lower. So I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm happy here. But if you look at all the Americans, like, for example, like, would they choose that life over going to study, pursuing like a regular job, like software engineer job or like whatever? It's like, no, they wouldn't do that. Like, they would pursue something else. And so yes, there was an Overwatch product before the Overwatch League. And yes, there was fans, there were tournaments, and it was a good time.
That show was carried by OGN. That's what people have rose in the glasses about OGN carrying the competitive scene. It's like that basically was the Overwatch League. You just had
it was basically
it wasn't called the Overwatch League, but it basically was. So you're saying it's like, oh, it was better pre-Overwatch League. Motherfucker, that still was Overwatch League, basically, just without the NA players. You know, you still have to have a level of organization.
People, that's what I said, that two groups of people. One group of people that they're independent, they've already farmed their VC money, and it doesn't matter if everything exits, or the viewers that are like, I guess it was to watch people compete. And yeah, they're in poverty, but I'm getting to have some entertainment.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
That's why I said
it's
the
just
consumers win.
people don't understand what it means. Like, and it is totally correct. We have to be more sustainable. That's 100% a fact. And like, but to reach true sustainability, I don't think the viewers understand what that means. I don't think you really get what sustainability is going to mean in esports, like from like the current in out of money. I don't think people really get what they're asking for here. Like, trust me, like you haven't seen the numbers. You don't know what you're saying. Like you're asking for like we're working on CRTs in my mom's basement. Like maybe we'll have enough money for pizza and it'll be we'll have a high old time, but my God, it's gonna be a tough one.
I think it's time to move on. I think this is a very nuanced conversation to begin with. So it's very difficult to like discuss.
I lighten the mood by
answers.
saying one thing about the guard. I came to this is gonna be quick. I made one.
Holy shit! Are you doing a Jake impression this broadcast? What the fuck, Gabriel?
Yeah, I had one crazy like realization about the guard and LA Gladiators. You remember the last time I was on, we did the jersey reviews, right? And I wasn't very happy about the LA Gladiators jersey. I was like, man, this jersey, I just don't like it. It looks half complete, and now I understand why. It's because they laid off the designers halfway through.
Okay.
Anyway, but,
tomato, boo, tomato. All right, let's go to the next section.
So yeah, do you guys have anything to say about this Beyond the Summit thing? Like, I'm over the kind of like esports doom and gloom thing, but them laying off their staff, they essentially said that like, hey, we pretty much now have to like lay off our people because we want to give them a good deal, we want to provide severance packages, we want to give them runway to find new jobs, etc. And so we're choosing to like lay off people now rather than in like a month, and we don't have anything, we don't have any runway to like help them out overall. This is just a different part of the industry. This is Beyond the Summit who, they get contracts to put on tournaments, they get sponsors to put on tournaments and stuff like that. So they're not, I mean, maybe you can draw parallels, but this is just a different part of the industry. It's not a team, but it's actually like a tournament organizer and a broadcast provider who have historically worked with developers and putting on a broadcast and stuff like that, right? So a bit different, but they also decided to do huge layoffs. So if you don't know Beyond the Summit, they used to do like Smash tournaments, Dota 2 primarily, like way back. And they also did a Valorant.
They've been running some of the
recently.
Valorant events. Yeah, they run some Valorant tournaments.
So yeah, I think they laid off everyone. Did they? With
Yeah,
severance
they're saying the
packages?
company is done. The company's over.
The company's going under.
After this next like their contracts that they have, the company's done.
Yeah,
Right?
and in this as well, they were like, we had the option to take VC money at some point. At some points, like taking external investment, diluting their shares in the company, to take on like some additional money, but they decided against it. They were always like endemic, homegrown, in the backyard tournament esports provider. But now it's over. They're shutting it down. So
The difference between this and the teams is, I think for tournament organizers, TOs, ultimately what it always comes down to, and ESL suffer from this as well, is they end up having to compete against the publishers for rights to broadcast tournaments. And this is why they're doing, most of the third-party TOs like ESL and BTS, they're doing Valve games because the licenses are easy to get. Valve don't really give a shit. You can do Dota, you can do Counter-Strike. I think Smash is easy as well, but you're starting to lose fighting games now because Capcom is taking everything inside.
Also, didn't the esports engine take a shit ton of work as well?
But
Esports
yeah,
engine does,
that's the other thing.
sure.
It's like everyone,
Sure
all the TOs have to cannibalize each other as well. Because if esports is monopolized by publishers, that's kind of what the reality is. And even if, let's say, you do want to do Valorant, you do want to do X or Y, Overwatch, whatever, the licenses can range from, oh, this is just very tedious to get, to actually you have to pay the publisher money to get a tournament license in some cases. So it's a really harsh landscape for TOs, I think, esports. So this is really sad, but I think TOs really struggle out there. It's just not a very hospitable space for TOs.
And they're also the ones that had the most clear use case, most clear cut direction on how to make money. You just had to run the tournament and try to like monetize the tournament.
Get sponsors.
You had a clear product. You had a clear product
contract
to like make and run.
Well,
and
they have to fight against the same people for sponsors. Well, we go back to the sponsorship discussion there. The sponsorship pie is just too small for everybody.
Yeah, it is. But also, the thing is, even with the CS tournaments, and this is my last thing on this because we've already talked to death. But like, it's like, yes, there's more opportunity for TOs to run events, but the problem is the TOs are still all having to take the crypto and Saudi money and things like that because the revenue is still not there for like what you expect out of tier 1 event work. So like the issue is like at the end of the day, when people screech about endemic, you're looking at it. You're looking at the endemics right now. And I understand, like, oh, if the publishers were more open, there'd be more work. But also, like, there's no guarantee that the revenue stream would be there still if there was more work at the end of the day. Like, the publisher can monetize it. They can monopolize it because it's just marketing. That's all it is.
Yep.
So.
All right.
That's it.
Custa, you had anything additional on that point? No.
Well, I just want to say, like, I'm really sad to see this company go. I think they made some of the most organic and just down to earth esports content, and like
incredible.
One of the reasons I fell in love with esports as a whole, like their vibe of like it's just people who love the game, enjoying the game, and doing it, and they managed to make a functioning job and make great tournaments out of it. So they will be missing the esports scene.
Yeah. So one of the biggest criticisms we got as a podcast about a month ago was that we're way too doom and gloom. We're trying to change this narrative, but it's very difficult. It's very hard in the current day and age to try to be optimistic and passionate and celebrate everything. I will say, though, at some point, it almost feels like we just have to talk about roster moves and just like player acquisitions and just like speculate about roster and performance and stuff like that, because it's getting out of control. But like, if we also don't talk about the future of esports and the guard and like throw away like weird hypotheticals and without the proper nuance, like, I don't know, will we do our job as a podcast? I don't know. So anyway, moving into even worse news.
Let's go. Let's go. Hey, but the good news is, I mean, we were talking about this, is that it's not just us. Guys, the podcast may be doom and gloom, but it's not Overwatch. It's everyone. So, I mean, like, remember that. Huh?
Oh my god. Yeah, it's I mean, so the one question I didn't get to ask there that I wanted to ask for the longest time, but then we like dove deep into like broadcast deals and viewer revenue. It was like essentially like the rumor about the LA Gladiators shutting down their thing after the season. They were like some, I don't know if it was a rumor or like a report, but they were like they're stopping stuff after the season. But I don't think, I'm just gonna move on because honestly, I don't think we have any like valuable information to provide whatsoever about the future of the league and like what would happen if the LA Gladiators was just like, nope, we're not gonna do it, and would like the league have to step in? What would they do? Like, I just don't think like we have the answers. So I just don't want to spend like 10 minutes speculating about 2024 and the LA Gladiators' role in it. Like,
what if we put Kevin's hypothesis to the test, and it's now time? We're going to provide a product to monetize esports. Your product, viewers, you get to put up the money and run the LA Gladiators. If you put up the money and you get to choose the roster, you get to choose the coach, you get to choose the compositions, and you get to choose the name. And that's
what do you think the acquisition fee will be? Do you think it's like, oh, we're in debt like 16 million or whatever, just like we have some part-time payments to the league for our franchise buy-in, and you can just take the team for free if you sort it out? Or is it more like 1 million for name recognition because it's LA?
I mean, Bed Bath & Beyond, they went bankrupt, and their store next to me is having a 50% off sale. So I think we should do a similar thing. The Gladiators.
Oh, okay.
50% off, crowdfund it. You guys, this is your new product. You guys get to run the team. And you know what? I think that's it. But realistically, no. I have no fucking idea what the hell that even means. I don't know what that would mean if the Gladiators just shut down. Like, because in the past, hasn't that been for like, in other sports leagues, typically the league has operated it. Correct?
Wouldn't it be like the Houston situation?
Yeah, they did a Houston thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
like
limbo
managed
and
the
the league
team,
had
and
dropped
then I think Monty at the time was just like, this is a huge like conflict of interest because you have two teams now run by some same
but that's assuming that was when a team would choose to take on the burden of running another team. I assume no team right now is going to run that burden, right? So like in other sports leagues, I'm saying, I thought in the past when a team like the ownership group has essentially been like, we're out, the league has been like, we'll manage it essentially until we find a new buyer. So, like, that's interesting because it's like, what would that even mean? And is that something the league could even do? So, I don't know.
Well, if you have the league controlling more slots, then technically you can just, like, throw some money around. So, like, yeah, we're going to give the teams that are run by the league, we're going to give them more money to do shit with. And so...
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No? No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I have a distinct feeling that will not happen.
It'll be a minimum team.
All right. Do we quickly want to spend some time on this? Because if we don't talk about this, people will be like, oh, they're not talking about it. They're just trying to cover up for the league. Well, NoHill came out and he said how LG purposely set up the team to fail is the headline. NoHill didn't talk about everything in chronological order, so forgive me if it's a bit confusing and hard to follow at times. After Valiant won their first game, LG straight up told them to stop winning because they, presumably LG, are going to lose money winning. This is the most insane Reddit post
By the way, I
think
can
I've read.
confirm that. I heard about this as well behind the scenes a while back, so I can also say that I heard this rumor.
Avast tapped in.
I heard this around playoffs. They were told to win less so that so that LG didn't have to foot the cost, because the teams have to fly and house the teams themselves to go to the playoffs, right? So if you end up going to an event like the playoffs, then that would have been more expensive for LG.
So they didn't want to make the playoffs.
Around that time,
right.
I had heard that LG instructed the Valiant to not make playoffs.
Wow. Because they don't want to pay for travel and shit.
LG. Now, isn't that company bankrupt now, though?
No, I
Didn't
no
LG
idea.
go under? I think they did.
I don't
think
know anything about the Chinese esports scene.
That
I'm
would not
almost-
shock me if true.
I think LGE has also gone under in this time. So all this cost-saving measures somehow did not save them, unfortunately. Unfortunately, them putting 8 people in a room in the Valiant house did not
a bit of
save
a
the
Nerd
LGE
Street Gamers
corporation.
moment where you're like, when we got
Yeah.
our contract from Valiant next year, we can pay you out for this past year.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, because they were like, nah, you're just not going to be paid, I think is the situation here. I mean, they literally didn't know he'll literally say, like, yeah, they just, like, none of them got paid at all at any point. Like, they talked about it and there's no payment. Like, the league stepped in, but, like, what's the league going to do at this point? Like, what are you going to, like, the game, you can't even play the game in China. Like, even if they wanted to go retroactively go after them. Like, you know, it's like,
So
it's pretty
in the
fucking
past,
brutal.
In the past, I've been like pretty like soft on these rumors and stuff, and been like, I don't know if this is true. Like, this is just a Reddit post translating someone. But this is essentially like NoHill putting his name onto this source right here and like associating himself, like saying this is his kind of like statements, I suppose. So I do think it has a bit more validity than your average translated Reddit post in that regard. So he speaks about, you know, how it was really hard to get paid by LG. Molly was never paid until Noah reported LG to the league in September. LG also promised verbally to the team and in at least NoHill's contract to pay them for each match they win, which they never actually did. So, I mean, it's a fucky situation, but I guess there's our answer. I don't know if you guys have anything to add, but this feels very much like the actual full picture of the Valiant LG 2022 story out, like in the open. Like, this is what actually like went down.
The only thing I have to add is, again, the report is that Immortals, IGC, which actually owned the Valiant slot, did pay LGE money that was supposed to go to the players. Like somewhere in the middle, the money just got lost. LG spent it elsewhere. Maybe they pocketed it. Maybe they did something nefarious with it. I don't know, but it's just something wacky happening. I think I'm pretty sure Immortals didn't do anything wrong here, except maybe they just obviously picked a really bad operator to handle LA Valiant. But maybe there was very little to pick from. Who knows? Who really wants to shoulder the cost of running an Overwatch League team at the end of the day, right? If you're from China, especially. So
Scott will.
I own the LA Valiant now, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's crazy.
I am also willing
to
to own the LA Valiant or the LA Gladiators, but I will also be still doing
we
the
can have a
crowdfunding method.
sick rivalry. You can be the LA
could.
Gladiators, I'll be the LA Valiant.
But I won't be making too many decisions. It's going to be like a Twitch Plays franchising.
Oh, Twitch Plays? Okay.
It's going to be a Twitch Plays franchising situation, and we're going to make the kind of day-to-day operations. I want to know the business genius on Valiant that was on LGE that was like, oh yeah, we'll pay you more money if you win, and then wins games. No, if you know you couldn't pay them the money, I'm assuming it's just because they're being manipulative, essentially, in the contract negotiations, and like they wanted to like incentivize them to play, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll do this, and like, no, we're not actually gonna do this. I also want to know how this team was essentially the most boomed a team could ever be. They were not getting paid, like, but they did better than New York.
Oh,
Their
wow.
record was better than New York. And this team was in a prison camp. They were held hostage. These guys were in essentially just a political work camp for gaming.
God.
And they did better than the New York Excelsior. Like, they had more success in the season than New York. New York was getting paid. And they had Yaki and like fucking Gangnam Jin. Like, what the hell? What happened? I need to know. I need to tell all story. Both. I mean, Valiant, they kind of laid it out. I need to see a documentary released, like POV footage of New York, because that shit should be impossible. That should be physically impossible.
Quote, and because no LAN, no pay, and always losing, the Korean players were completely boomed mentally. Becky in particular gave up entirely, stopped coming to scrims, and when he did, he would play heroes like Junkrat and Troll, but NoHill said he and the team can't blame him because no pay and no LAN.
And they still did better than New York. Like, come on, man. One of their guys was just playing Jay Silly. He didn't even show up to scrims. Like, that's insanity. How did this team do better than New York? How? I beg of you. I need to know. This is like on par
from Dia. Dia just wanted to win that badly.
Just incredible scenes. If I honestly, I don't say this lightly. If I was the New York Excelsior like executive management, I know you don't even probably know about like in NYXL like the Will Pawns and stuff, but realistically, you should feel a psychic shame for how poor your team did comparatively to the Valiant that operated with no reason, literally zero reason, no money, $0.
No
I
land.
just need to know.
They went to China.
Also, I guess in a related kind of topic here, did you guys see that the Vegas Eternal lost in open trials to Samito?
I did see that.
I couldn't avoid it. It was being pushed on my newsfeed everywhere.
It was a legendary moment. Honestly.
What was their name? What was the team name?
They lost to it was Red. Was it no? It was it was the old guys. It was the old guys. That's the one with Samito. Yeah, old guys and Momo.
I can't find. Is it this match?
You found them. They're right there. They played Citrus. Then they went and played Wisp.
They lost to Wisp.
Did Samito drop the replay code yet?
Oh,
I don't know.
One.
I think
they went out in the first round. They went out in the first round to Samito and the boys. And Clone Man. Wow.
Honestly, unreal respect. Unreal respect. That I mean, salute the president of Samito and Clone Man.
Shit. I'm like fucking 2 Overwatch League teams here. That's crazy. I don't know what more to say about that regard. I've at length talked about Vegas Eternal going into this year with the same roster and my thoughts on that, but not great. No one is in Vegas Eternal's corner at the moment.
I'm really excited for this year. I'm not gonna lie, I'm insanely excited. Not for good reasons though. I think that whatever the Valiant is gonna be, Vegas, whatever, who knows? New York theoretically, like I don't know, but like essentially the rivalry of like what is going to happen this year with some of these teams that have given up. They've pretty much given up. I want to see like what happens. I want to. I think it's gonna produce some of the best. Like the fucking toilet bowl with Houston Boston is referenced in like Valorant even because so many fans for Overwatch like also watch Valorant. Like I think we could produce some of the most stellar content ever seen this year. I think we produce the best. People, we've gone the whole wrong way about esports. We're trying to make the best matches. We need to make the worst matches, and people are gonna tune in for that 200%.
It'll be fine when it's New York versus Paris or something. But when you watch the Pro-Am and you have the ultra sweaty tier 2 teams coming in because they want to win badly, and you got the quivering Vegas Eternal there, like, oh shit, that's I don't know what's gonna happen there. That could be a train wreck.
Wow,
it's gonna be great.
People come into my stream. I've been streaming recently. People come into my stream and they're like, "Who do you think Valiant's gonna pick up?" And I'm like, I genuinely think they'll just pick up like a contenders team. They won't even do like due diligence. They won't even like do trials. There's no way. They'll just be like, "Hey guys, you guys won like 5 games in contenders. Do you want to play an owl?"
Couldn't they pick up Samito's team? They beat Eternal. Like so they could just pick up the entirety of the Samito
I got a question.
Clone Man
does every NA team have to participate in the Pro-Am? Every NA Overwatch League team? You have to. It's mandatory, right? Because there was also the conversation. Someone was like, "Oh yeah, Valiant could just skip the Pro-Am and then pick up the winning team or the best tier 2 team." But I'm like, I don't know if they're allowed. Surely they have to play in it. Surely everyone has to play.
Oh,
I simply am
I have no idea.
I do not know.
I literally don't know. If you told me that like we'll get to the Pro-Am and there'll be a statement just like because of blah 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 blah, the LA Valiant will not be performing in the Pro-Am, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
I'll believe it. It's like, yeah, there's probably like a 25-30% chance that they won't actually play in it for reasons I can't tell you. But, you know, there's a chance. Anyway, I think we're done with the bad news. We're done with the bad news, guys. It's over. This was just a test. This was just a test chat. 1 hour and 24 minutes to get to the bread. To get to the actual good stuff. Let's kick it off with an absolute bang. All right? You guys wondering where the budget went? Kai, been signed to the LA Gladiators. They rounded out the roster. We kind of expected this move, I think. But now, when you actually see it on paper, it kind of looks a little bit ridiculous. The damage lineup of Kevster, Yaki, and Kai for the LA Gladiators. We've arrived. What do we think, guys? Custa? I'm putting it on you. What do you think, Custa?
I think it's a good team. I think the addition of Kai has sort of been expected for a long time because Kevster Yaki would have been a weird just DPS duo. Like neither of them are like hard hit scans as much as people have speculated that Kevster could play the hit scan. I think just having Kai to round up the roster makes a lot of sense. The only real glaring hole I see in this is potentially Dante on the tank. Obviously just inexperienced in the role, but Dante's always stood up whenever he's been required to step up. So I can absolutely see Dante being fine. But for me, with how stacked the West is, this is like a top 5 team, but I don't see this roster being able to get over like a San Francisco Shock or, you know, like a Houston Outlaws, but I would love to be impressed. I think the coaching staff of the Gladiators did a great job last year of rallying that team together. So I think they still have great bones and they'll be a good roster.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with you. I think coaching, I'm really going to emphasize on coaching this year as well, because I really do feel like that will be a massive difference maker. Like you look at some of these teams in the league currently, whether it's like the Houston Outlaws, Boston Uprising, San Francisco Shock, and like a lot of them are so closely matched that like, yeah, of course you're going to have differences when it comes to like certain metas will be better for others. But in a large part, if you can coach your team and like get a good team dynamic, good teamwork, that's going to be like your biggest leg up, in my opinion. So when I look at this roster, I can be like, yeah, you know, maybe top 5 team in the West, maybe like the lower end of the top teams. But if they get coached well, if they channel some of that aggressive energy they had last year, where really like I've historically liked the playstyle of the Gladiators because I feel like they play with pace, they take initiative, and they like to engage. If you can channel that with this lineup, you certainly have the mechanical skill to back up that teamwork. So that's why I think the coaching staff is even more important than last year, I think, for the Gladiators now, because you're missing a few key pieces from last year. So
yeah, I mean, this roster's good. It's a good looking roster. I mean, I think overall we're close to getting stuck into the gravitational orbit of Scrimbucks. Already because they leaked the scrim codes.
They did.
Dante leaked the scrim codes, and then Kaluj leaked the other part of the scrim codes because they were scrimming Defiant, and then we're already having to be like, do Scrimbucks, are they the best indicator of success? Yiska says yes. Yiska is like, yes, Scrimbucks are the inherently best. And he is backed by some data, but also, correct me if I'm wrong here, because we went through this. Hasn't it been kind of even keeled? Like the years, like it's been half of the years have been determined by Scrimbuck success. The other half is not, correct? Like correlated pretty highly.
Do you mean the first half being Scrimbucks in the preseason? How do you divide this?
Well, I remember we went through that. Didn't we go through this? Like we went through like the
rankings from last year.
Essentially, and like it seemed like it pretty split down the middle, with maybe a slight advantage for Scrimbucks, which is a relatively small sample size when you think about how long the league's been.
Yeah, playing. I think Yiska historically has a good track record of actually predicting team placements based on his methods.
Based on the Scrimbucks?
His secret formula. He probably has a website, you can buy it. You know, here's Yiska's
the formula is Scrimbucks. He said it. So Yiska has said that the formula is Scrimbucks, which is fair. So yeah, I don't know. I think I personally am still excited for this team. I mean, they do like, I don't know. I'm still a little upset. I understand why, but I really think Space could have been kept on this roster. Like Space would have rounded up this roster a lot of ways. But also, when I think about it, like Dante, if anything, he's probably more proficient on the off tanks in many ways than he is the main tank. So like,
yeah, honestly, I think they would overlap.
He's competing for Space's job, I guess. So
if Dante was a main tank player, like he specialized more in that role, I think they both could have been on the team. But
yeah,
there's the teams in the World Cup players play Reinhardt meta.
Sorry, what?
Didn't the teams in the World Cup trials, didn't they play Reinhardt? Sometimes?
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of Reinhardt and Rush and stuff like that. I think.
You look at that now with this roster.
Man's got to get into the Vine workshops.
Their backline's good. Like Dante's been proven, after this past year to be like, you can at least feel confident he'll show up and do pretty well on a variety of tanks. Yaki's great. Kai is good, very very good. Is it pronounced Babel or Babel?
I think it could go both ways. I've said Babel, but I'm pretty sure you can say Babel as well. I actually don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the
Babel.
Well, it's good to have them on this roster as well to help like shore up for any sort of potential changes in like support metas and such. So it's like I think that they're pretty decently rounded, all things considered. Despite the fact that their organization literally collapsed, like they are pretty decently rounded.
Do you see the Hunter is their new social media manager? He did the roster announcement.
I did see his announce. I
don't have a social media
thought
manager.
It was a banger. I thought it was a true banger.
It was so good.
What do we think about Lastro being the flex support for this team now with Shu gone? Is it going to be a massive hit, you feel like? I mean, Lastro now is very flexible, but do you think it'll be a big hit?
He's no Shu. He's no Shu is the problem, right?
If anything, Lastro actually has... I think Lastro kind of has the problem where like they've gotten an extremely flexible support player onto a team where they probably need a hard flex. Because you have... If anytime you're going to play... I guess actually it doesn't really... It's not the end of the world because you could... The problem here is like, okay, you have Astro who's like, okay, Lucio, Mercy, Brigida. Astro can play all those heroes. But then it's like... But then you have Lastro who's like, can play all of those heroes, but in particular Lucio, and then play flex support. So like... Funny Astro's position is like in a really interesting spot when you get a flex support that's so that has the ability to play Lucio like Lastro did, because Lastro's Lucio was pretty good. He's solid for Houston.
It was great actually.
It was a great Lucio player. So like that's, if anything, that's pretty interesting. Is like, but it's definitely a downgrade in the pure flex support department because Shu is Shu.
Yeah, Shu
is like potentially one of the is in contention for the best flex support in the league.
Yeah.
So.
Shameless plug. Actually, I'm actually going to interview Bobble, and I'll try to get some answers from him and see how he's grown since his early days and how he's looking forward to see the new season. So it's not going to be on Plat Chat, but I am actually going to speak to him, and I'm hope to shine a light on some of these player stories.
Could you be saying you're cannibalizing content from Plat Chat?
No. Because actually, a quick small little note on this. I did put out that thing where it was like, who would you like to see interviewed on Plat Chat, etc. And there were a lot of people in the replies who were like, please get like Korean players on with like translators and shit.
I make a request, Johnny.
This is like the biggest kind of like example of like sometimes viewers don't know what they're asking for. We're not doing a fucking 2-hour Plat Chat podcast with translators and Korean players back and forth. Like it just would straight up not be a good like viewing or listening experience to hear the back and forth, the translating. Like it's just, if you want to do interviews, which I'm now looking to do with more Korean players to try to get an idea of their stories and who they are, great, I'm going to do that. But a 2-hour Plat Chat episode with translators and Korean players, it's not happening, guys. I'm sorry, it's just that's not gonna go great. So
Johnny,
what, Avril?
Can you ask him if it's Babel or Babel?
I will indeed.
Thank you. Good for me.
Absolutely, I will do that for you and for us as a collective, as professionals at our job.
Considering that you're cannibalizing the content like much of esports, you need to give back to us a little bit. Back to us.
Well, it's not actually cannibalizing because it'll be pay-to-view content. All the people who wants to watch this interview with Babel, they're gonna have to pay for a reinforced subscription on Twitch. That's how it's gonna go, buddy. So it's
really smart.
Pay-per-view content with
well, it's gotta be.
Can you come back with the results so we can discuss the results of that study to see if we think it's applicable?
Sure. I will draw. I will see how large of a percent of my viewer audience actually pay for this interview. So,
I want to comment about LA Gladiators. Are we fairly unanimous that this is definitely going to be a worse year for Glads than last year? It feels like that's the direction they're going in, even with the DPS look good, but feels like compared to Atlanta, compared to Boston, compared to Shock, Glads aren't in the same level of competitiveness that they were last year. That's my feeling, at least.
I think the roster is the same. I think the competition in the West got harder. is sort of what I would do it. I think there's a lot of side grades. Obviously, there's some down, some up, but I actually I don't think it's awful. I think they have a lot of versatility in their roster. I think their DPS line's really good. But do I think it's just like they've gotten even much worse? No. I think overall, as I said, with the West has been essentially bolstered by some of the best players in the East, and I think it's going to make it hard for the Gladiators to compete.
I actually think it's a bit of a downgrade. Like you look at the missing pieces like Shu and Reiner, like I think those are pretty big pieces right there. And so I actually think that as much as we're hoping to go out with Dante later this week. Sorry, buddy. I think Reiner was probably a better tank than you last year for most
Especially
part
when you
of the
pair
year.
him with space as well, right?
Well, I don't think it's like, but also for Dante at least, like there was thinking about it. No, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think realistically, when you thought about the metas, was Reiner really that? Because Dante on the Doom was definitely competing with Reiner's Doom.
Reiner had a good Doom, good Winston.
But Dante's Doom was really, really good. He was like one of the big innovators for it initially, theoretically. And like Reiner's Winston was probably
better Junker Queen. Dante had a better Junker Queen.
But Dante's had a better Junker Queen. I don't necessarily think Reiner was the better tank than Dante all of last year.
Okay.
I think Reiner has overall stronger picks,
sure.
and heroes like Winston are more likely to be meta than heroes like Junker Queen as well.
Main tank bias. Sorry.
Kinda, and I think both can play Zarya. That's fine, all that kind of stuff, right? There's what's the other position I was thinking of? Yeah,
Shu.
Maybe hot take from me, not just Shu, but a hot take from me. Dude, Happy was monstrous in playoffs. Losing Happy,
really good, yeah.
Kai's a decent player, but am I crazy that I'd rather have Happy?
Oh my god, I
was thinking of the start of the roster. I was thinking with Arns, Paddy Pan, Kevstar. I think I prefer Yaki Kai to Paddy Pan Arns. At least especially with the number of question marks.
What about the end of the Glads? What about playoffs Glads?
Yeah, when you had Happy,
But I think so. But if I'm trying to remember, because like there's been long off season, a lot of stuff going on. For my memory, is that a big portion of why Kai didn't seem as explosive. It wasn't Kai out for a large portion of the year for Venom, and Kai wasn't playing for like meta reasons and such like that too.
They
like
had different. Yeah, I mean, sure, there were some meta reasons, but there was
they played like Venom.
Sojin was played the whole year almost.
Venom was
that's true. That's true. Yeah, but I'm trying to remember who else was Kai playing the whole year? I think did he play the whole year? I'm trying to remember off the top of my, because if I can't remember, that's not good.
We went from a soldier meta to a soldier meta. So when would Kai have stepped out?
You know what?
They did have a period where they did a lot of different player swaps. I remember when Nero was still in the mix.
But the thing is, this is already giving me my answer. This is giving me my answer. If I can remember because I agree with you. Happy stands out of my mind as like a very standout player, that was really, really good when he was playing for Glads. Like Happy probably had the better year. But I don't think Kai's bad. I think Kai, if in a right return to form, Kai can match Happy. I
actually think this is one of the most interesting kind of like player storylines to me going into this year, because I actually think that Kai, we all know he had a great start to the year last year, but actually like towards the end of the year, like even in the playoffs, like I didn't rate him as highly as I thought I would. Like I wrote my list and I was like, wow, like Kai is not top 5 on my list anymore. Like where historically he was like a fantastic elite hit scan player, but at the end of the year I started looking at players like Merit, for example, and just being like, well, I'd rather have Merit. Like I look at Hydron Sojourn, would I rather have Hydron Sojourn over Kai? Like towards the end of the year, like probably Hydron was insane. And so I'm looking forward to see how involved Kai is this year and like how he actually performs, because some of these young guns started like overtaking him, in my opinion. That was Sojourn specifically, though. His Widowmaker and Cass, we'll see.
Really quick, I don't think Kai and Lastro are bad players, but it does feel like a downgrade to Happy Shu, is my position.
I think Lastro is one of those players who, and we talked to Jake and Dante about this, and they were sort of talking about the quality of Lastro as a player. And they say that Lastro is kind of underrated, and I don't think we've ever really seen the true power of Lastro, right? Because his first season was on the Los Angeles Valiant, and that roster he was good on that roster, but he wasn't a great roster. They went to Toronto Defiant, another struggling roster where like everything was on fire. And then last year we saw him play main support. I don't think we've really seen the true power of Lastro flex support, and I think this is the first time he's in his proper role, and he has a great team around him. So I don't know if I'm happy to just say that he's probably, in our current minds, a downgrade to Shu because Shu is considered one of the best flex supports in the world. But I think Lastro is going to impress a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a great player. He definitely was underrated last year. It's just because people were putting him in the pure flex support conversation when the reality, his value as a player was how insanely flexible and good he was across a variety. So, like, it's still going to be a potentially good year for Glads. Yeah. And I think, honestly, they might actually I think there's a theoretical possibility they will have a better year because there's less moving pieces likely because they had to figure with Patapan.
They won 2 stage titles last year.
Yeah, I was going to how can you...
Listen, yeah. I'm putting up a theoretical. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm putting up a theoretical because they don't have to swap. They're probably not going to have as many DPS swaps. They also wanted to figure out what to do with Reiner versus Space. Like, that matchup. Like, Dante will be their tank player. Dante will play the whole time. They'll have that set in stone from the beginning. Dante's shown to be pretty flexible because that definitely was an issue for them was when they went to the Junker Queen meta, Reiner's place in the team and like how well he played and what that meant for them and their cohesion. So there is strength to having a unified vision for your squad the whole year. There is a power there, especially if you don't have like a
Connor, you could also take them to the grave. It's like you can be unified and losing as well. I think being unified is not necessarily.
A good example would be Washington 5 and their content creators.
I mean, I think there's actually more evidence towards typically when a team has good players, like players that are quality, of having unified vision and being good than there are teams that have good players and not unified vision and being bad. Like there are far more examples of a team having too many pieces and too many moving parts and they're good players and they're bad versus a team that has solid players across all the roles and a central vision and are doing better.
All right, I'm cutting you off after this, Avro.
I think the other top teams have a solidified roster as well. I mean, Shocker on basically 6 players. I don't think they're going to move away from that. Boston just has enough players. No one's. I don't think many other teams have like this crazy situation. Boston's not doing this 3 tank thing again. I think Atlanta has a slightly beefier roster, and that's about it. But right. I feel like this unified thing here. Most of the top teams should have that.
We still have lots of like single signings to go for this show, but. I feel like we're sort of stepping, like with this conversation, we're almost stepping on like the LA Gladiators season preview video. So I'm going to have us run through some of these single signings. And then at a later date, we can record separate team previews or like we can record it on the podcast or whatever and talk more holistically about the teams, their place in the region. But just want to speed run through some of these signings because there's quite a bit actually. Finally, teams are finally dropping their signings and it's not dead on Wikipedia anymore. So the next one I want to jump to is Violet signing with the Houston Outlaws, moving on from the San Francisco Shock and rounding out this squad. Now, holy shit, this team has Fearless, Happy, Pelican, Shu, and Violet. Jesus Christ, this might be the most stacked Overwatch League roster I have ever seen. I don't even know where to start with this. I am dumbfounded. Is Violet Shu the best backline in the league? That's a spicy one for you, Custa.
His Lucio is good, and it's definitely can play the job. But I think he's the best Lucio in the world? No, and I think he gets outclassed by a lot of the crazy Lucio players out there. In terms of just 2 players that can cover absolutely fucking everything, yes. And so I'll give you that. I would say it's the best backline. If they're not going to add another player, and if you couldn't have 3 supports, then I would say yes. But I agree with you. This roster is just challenge that. It came out of nowhere, it feels like. But their roster is just crazy.
I think the best backline of the world is Rack Attack. No, it's actually Feel the Chio. Feel the Chio, I think, might actually take it for me.
Oh my god.
True Violet.
I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think that's like unreasonable. The biggest problem I have with that is I'm trying to remember all of the times because this is literally just me having early dementia. It's like, and it's been a long time. It's like, how much did Chio flex? I remember Chio did flex, and he looked pretty good, didn't he? But I can't remember how much he flexed.
Very little. We haven't really seen a double flex support meta
Yeah,
in the
that's
Overwatch
my
League,
biggest
in Overwatch 2.
He played a
concern.
little bit in
Yeah, a little
the
bit.
junior.
That's what I'm
They got
saying. He played a bit,
Vigilante.
and he
They
looked
got
pretty
Vigilante.
good.
Chio doesn't have to flex. They got Vigilante.
That's true. That's fair. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, like, you know, there is a benefit to having. I'm more surprised that Houston managed to find the only potential flex support that you could get that also plays a really good Lucio. Like, because those are pretty much the only two options of like a player that you know will play a really good Lucio and is also an amazing caliber flex support.
Wait, you're
It's
saying
like
they didn't want
Lastro.
Gangnam Jin? Oh man.
What about
I know,
Lastro?
it's
Unlucky.
fucked up. That's what I'm saying. There was only two options.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
Lastro
right,
and
right,
Violet.
right,
That's
right,
it.
right.
That's all you got. Those are your only options. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's my biggest concern about that backline is like, you know, what's the flex? But I guess if you bring in Vigilante, but then the question is like, would you rate Vigilante Fielder over Happy Violet in a double flex? Or not Happy Violet, Shoe Violet. Not Happy Violet. Would you rate them over that? Would you put that at, because that's kind of determines if that backline's better, right? It's the permutations of it as well.
Was that a question? Sorry.
Sorry.
That's a question. The question here, let me, guys, hello. The question here
You kind of lost me when you said happy. I was like, I
corrected myself. Okay, I know we all, dude. I'm gonna put
Let's
up
start
like,
again.
okay, Johnny. In the future, when we have a segment, put me. I need a corner box, like a top right corner, and then there's Subway Surfers. There's TikTok videos, like playing underneath me to like keep everyone's retention, like everyone. We can get the stimulus, so we can all have our TikTok brains.
What was the question?
The question was Violet Shoe potentially better overall backline than Chio, Fielder, and Vigilante? Because it's not just about them in a Lucio flex support meta, but also a double flex meta, right? Like, is the Atlanta backline better overall, all three of them, than just having Shoe, Violet?
I would say yes. I would if I had the ability to sub as much as I want, I would go Atlanta. Because I think that's just I think Chio's Lucio is absolutely insane, and I don't think Violet can hit that same level of Lucio. That's the primary thing. I think the double flex, I would consider them somewhat equal.
Honestly, yeah, I feel like Vigilante is honestly like a big part of that as well.
Good.
Like if you're saying like Fielder Chio versus Violet Shoe, I might go Violet Shoe there, which is heresy because Fielder and Chio are the Overwatch League champions and one of the best backlines last year. But the added skill of Vigilante to that duo, that trio, is just crazy.
Yeah, it's nasty. I agree. I would say Atlanta Reign's backline wins for me just because they have the ability to have a dedicated, like they have an amazing double flex support and they have an arguably far better main support player. Yeah. So
yeah.
How about this lineup? We didn't even talk about these guys. Lee Gon, Izayaki, Twilight. Come on, is that not a sexy backline as well?
That is very nasty. That is very nasty, but I think Izayaki kind of had a bit of a fall off.
And Lee Gon. I think both of them struggled last
played
season.
so well.
They were like, okay, we're not saying they played so well. They were obviously still great players, but we're putting them at the highest caliber. Like, do you think Izayaki and Lee Gon had a similar enough season to Chio Fielder, for example, who I think were instrumental? And that's what I'm saying. Just last year, like as of recency bias.
Right, but because I don't know, I'm coping here a little bit because we've seen their peak, 2021 Shanghai, and we know Twilight's insane as well. So when you think about peak Izayaki with Twilight as a backline, double flex support,
so hard.
I'm creaming. Yeah.
It's good. No, it's great.
Good.
I feel so insanely vindicated too, by the way, for my belief in Twilight when we did those rankings like so long ago. Like Twilight still is so fucking good. He's so
insane.
So fucking good. God, he's so fucking good. It's actually unreal. I remember people gave us so much shit. It was like, oh yeah, he's so fucking. He's like in the top.
Well, didn't you put it? Yeah, didn't you put him to it? Yeah, you put him like really high.
I mean, at this point, I mean, come on, man. Like, come on.
I'd
have to remember.
like Twilight as good as Violet? No, who did
I
that?
had like you said he was better than someone who was like.
I had Twilight like top. I think I remember I had Twilight like top 3. He was like top 3 flex supports of like all time. Which I think, considering the longevity of his career and like how good he's still been, I think is completely fair. I think it's a completely fair assessment.
At this point of his career, I could agree to you somewhat.
No, it was already evident to those that had the knowledge. It was already evident, and now now you've caught up to me.
All right, okay. Well, can we just? While I'm going on a tangent, sorry, Johnny. Where's the Yaki top 5 DPS? Are we still in that?
This is the year. This is the year. Okay, here. I'm putting it down. I'm putting them down. If Yaki Because also, I'm gonna be honest, Yaki still had a good individual performance on New York. His team was so ass. His team was so the gravitational pull of the assery, the ass black hole pulled him beyond the fucking it went beyond the goddamn singularity. He went into another dimension of ass. Like the fact that he even had moments where he was able to look okay is shocking. It is shocking how terrible that team was. That team was worse than the Valiant. The Valiant the players didn't get paid. They slept all in the same room together. They could have been breaking rocks, prison yard style, that's absurd. So this is the year, though. I will say, if Yaki does not put up a good performance this year with the Gladiators, then I'm willing to walk back that day. I'll be willing to be like, you know what? Maybe I was a little wrong.
So in your mind, Gladiators have 2 of the top 5 DPS in the league.
I think if Yaki puts up a fucking lit performance this year, I think
there's so many caveats. Yeah.
Not good.
He's bad.
Because this one he doesn't have an excuse. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
New York, he performed solidly on New York, but his team was so bad there was no way you're ever gonna have an incredible performance. Mayhem, the early parts of Mayhem, he still had incredibly good individual performances in Mayhem 2021. It's the bones are all there. It's all there. It's just he's been hobbled by what the team structure has been.
I'm going to adopt those same principles and that same belief about Rag Attack. If Rag Attack was on Houston Outlaws, he'd be popping off. I'm kidding.
Whoa, my God. You're going to tell me former runaway player Yaki, who's had some of the most incredible individual performances in Overwatch. I mean, that was, my God.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
My God.
I'm joking.
It
got a little silly there. It got a little silly there. I apologize for the silliness. It's a silly podcast.
It is. We're trolling today.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. O2 Shock. They rounded out their roster by adding Junbin to the tank lineup next to Max. I can't say we're too surprised, but Avril, do you want to do some ranting here? How stacked is this roster?
Nothing to rant about. I mean,
1 to 10, how stacked is it?
Basically, Shock managed to pick up the top 3 rookie prospects available from Contenders Korea all into their team. Who are the top 3 eligible players in Korea? Oh, it's Heesang, Max, and Junbin. Let's take all 3. They just did it.
Well, I mean,
so,
put
me at a 10, baby. I don't know. It's as incredible as you could ask for. The only thing this team is missing is a hit scan, and I think they probably would have kept Kilo if he didn't leave. My only question now is what they do about that position, because what you would not want to have, what you would not want to see, is a Chengdu Hunter situation where it's Leave and Jinmu, and it's like, well, I guess Leave plays hit scan, and in this case, Proper would play hit scan, which I'm sure Proper will be okay on that. But his real value is on the flex DPS, on the hyperflex, right? So, Heesang's not playing hit scan. Heesang's definitely he's going to be playing Tracer and
to join the show.
There was a rumor of Hisu, yeah.
I'm sure people didn't just mix it up with Heesang.
No,
it's possible.
No.
I've seen the state of reporting in the Overwatch scene, okay? The other day, Roston put out an announcement talking about how much he loved Philly, and then Halo Thoughts was like, we're so sorry to see you go. He was not retiring. His ass was not reading that. His ass was not reading that.
Halo literally the day before the announcement of Junbin said Junbin is not going to the San Francisco Shock, and the next day Junbin went to the...
No, he 180. He reported both. He's like, he's not going, and he is also going. So no matter what happens, I'm right.
Playing the field.
So yeah, I think as soon as I just remember my favorite tweet is Kalu just when the whole 17 the age change thing happened and Sean dropped that, Kalu's next tweet is like, and Proper said, "Let there be Junbin." just appears, just summons Junbin into the league. So yeah, the 2 top tank prospects, top DPS prospect. What more could you ask for? They have mad synergy. The only player on this team that doesn't have pre-existing synergy is Heesang, and even then Heesang's played with Max and Junbin at the minimum, and everyone else outside of Heesang, those other 5 dudes, they've played together for a couple of years now. So pre-existing synergy, one of the best Contenders teams ever. I'm excited for Shock in 2023, and especially versus Defiant, because you're going to have American Tornado versus O2 Blast.
Avril, that really matters. The one question that really matters, okay? the amount of people who hype up this O2 Blast transition into the Overwatch League, they're like one of the best contenders teams ever. Now look at this talent. They're incredible players, all right? The only thing I want to know is, you look at this roster and you praise them, you say they're really good. Is this a top 3 team in the league?
Oh, is it a top 1? No, go up. Do you think this is the best? Do you think this is the best team in the league? Do you think this is the team to beat this season?
How high do you put it?
Currently, yeah. And the reason for that is because Dallas has been kind of taken apart. Atlanta looks good, but current Scrimbuck says that they're actually losing for some reason.
Scrimbucks?
There's
Atlanta Scrimbucks.
That is the most accurate determiner of team success. I've been
also,
told.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Look, Lip Stalker, great. Donghak Hawk is not gonna match up to Max Junbin. That's just straight up. Sadly, Boston Uprising. I think we've all had our different thoughts on Boston. The talent is insane there, but
oh god,
we don't know how this team gels at all. Like this could be like a weird situation. I think the real thing that sells the shock for me this year is the fact that the pre-existing synergy is so clear. I actually think the top 2 teams of the announced rosters right now for me are Shock and Houston. With Shock first, Houston second is my current top 2.
I would say the same. And then I think it gets real convoluted for third. I think third is up in the air for any of those other teams that
gonna be Valiant.
I would just and Valiant when they sign.
Let's go, baby.
Be Valiant, baby.
You enjoy Valiant.
just wait and see. I was just laughing because I already see the comments coming of like prepping the shock dick riding narratives early, are we?
Yeah. I want to get on that.
Here we go. I love that. I love when like, you know, are we just supposed to lie about them and say this shit? Then I don't know, what do people want? It's just so strange to me. Like, you're not allowed to say they're good. Like, what's going on?
You could justify, like, you could definitely make an argument, you know, and the Dallas fans, they could justify it, right? Like, they had a stacked roster, but I think losing the backline of Dallas and losing Fearless is going to really hurt them, right? Do you think that the Dallas Fuel could have won the league last year against the last year's San Francisco Shock if they didn't have Fearless or Chio and Fielder, right? Like, I think those 3 players are instrumental in their win. I'm not 100%. Taking anything away from Sparkr and Edison, right? Like, they are great players. Their DPS line is good, but they have so many questions.
All right, don't sleep on MacD. Don't sleep on MacD, my man.
I'll put it this way. Hanbin was more important in the regular season and the other tournaments. But Fearless was more important in the playoffs, 100%, because of Winston meta. And the Fearless Mikey gap, that was pretty huge. So Houston is looking unreal. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. But when I think about peak player quality in terms of individual mechanics, the current Shock rookies have it. And on top of that, they have pre-existing synergy. That's really big for me because that is one thing that Atlanta and Boston lack. Houston might lack it as well, but they're so stacked. I just want to believe they'll make it work. I don't know. Like there's no other rosters that we can talk about other than the NA ones that have been announced outside of Justice, New York, and LA Valiant. And of the ones that are announced, me having seen what these rookies can really do and having seen them over the past 2 years, and you know, by the way, no one's allowed to use the extremely lazy narrative of like, oh yeah, but they're contenders players. We don't know how they're going to do it. Overwatch. Overwatch League, that's the dumbest narrative. I'm sorry. Like, we're going into season 6 here. Like that was an acceptable line of narrative to say in season 1 and 2. You cannot be 6 years deep in the Overwatch League and still running with the, well, we don't know how contenders do. Did you watch last year? It was the biggest year ever for contenders rookies.
I don't know how players like Dante just like make a sustainable living in the league, because every year there's just like 20 new rookies that are just like, what's up? We're way better than you old guys.
Whoa. I'm actually so I'm gonna counter this narrative a little bit, just because, not because I'm countering the skill of the rookies, but more so, if all the old players get cut and don't have a new roster spot to go compete on, how could the rookie players not have a better season? Like, of course there's going to be more rookies because all the old guys don't get another chance to compete.
Well, there are still always going to be old guys in the league, right? But then what happens throughout the season, you realize they don't cut it anymore, and then they get cut. Yeah.
They got replaced by the teams chose the rookies over the old players.
I think... So here's my opinion on that. I think if there was more rosters available to where these guys, some of the older players could go to and compete again, I do think that some of them are going to be 100% surpassed by the rookies. but we really don't know for like if that player was really done because they weren't given another chance to play. Like, how can we definitively say this guy is 100% better than the other guy when they didn't get equal opportunities to compete against each other?
That's a whole rabbit hole, man. Like,
that's an old
but that's not me. That's not me. That's not also not me talking about the rookies aren't really good. That we're not producing really good rookies. I'm simply saying that, of course the rookies had their best year ever because all the old people are fucking gone. They've been like they're not there. Like they can't. Like,
but that's not true. Like the rookies beat Shanghai Dragons. Like Shanghai Dragons were old players that have like been good in 2020 and they've been around for a long time, and the rookies surpassed them, right? And that's sort of the.
But that's one team. That's a one team. But don't get me wrong, Shanghai really good. I think that is like obviously a very strong narrative point. The point I'm not trying to say that I'm not saying the point was wrong. I'm simply saying that like I think Overwatch Esports traditionally has always valued that like we're just slowly. It's Ender's Game out there, man. All the old guys, like they're get them the fuck out of here. Like, you know, like they just don't have the same. I think there is a level of like we want to replace to get fresher, newer talent, and it's not just only because of skill. It's also because of contracts.
People want to hit the lottery pick. They wanna pick up the rookie, the contender's talent that potentially turns into a star player in the league. And so they're willing to take some
but I'm not at
chances
all doubting that the rookie talent is very, very good. It's clear they were very good. They beat Shanghai and such.
I'll say
versus
this,
picking up
here,
like Opener from Washington
let me
and be like,
meet-
Opener's our guy. He's
Let me
solid.
meet in the middle here. Even if we wanted to say like unproven talent, etc., I would accept that line of narrative for certain rookies from other teams, but not for O2 Blast. O2 Blast is a cut above. It's a different caliber of team. So if you're a rookie from O2 Blast, especially if you're a top rookie, this isn't profit with a PH coming in or like probe or somebody who is like, yeah, I don't know how they're going to do. They're not currently in the league for what it's worth. We're talking about who are the top 3 players on O2 Blast, who is the best team, by the way. And those are the rookies coming. We're not talking about number 7, number 8 in terms of the hierarchy of rookies coming from that team. The top 3 rookies. So that's where the level of confidence comes from.
I think it's also important, like, we have proof of this, right? Like, last year, remember, everyone was like, hot take, I don't think Proper's going to be that good. I think the Plat Chat and everyone is just overhyping Proper, right? Like, dude won MVP, right? So it's like, there is obviously truth behind what Avril is saying, right? He is the truest person to the source of, like, providing
that's because the Crosters were dick riding him.
Yeah, they're dick riding. Yeah, he only won MVP because his thing is like...
We do the same thing for Pelican, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way... You ask the coaches and players. You guys did the interview with Sam and Kaluj. Yep. Kaluj called Proper MJ. He said Proper is our Michael Jordan. Yeah. Kaluj said that.
Sam was like, also... I don't know how he does it. It's just like
but
his
Kaluj's
talent.
on the
he
shock,
and
so he's dick riding himself and investing in the
my point is, it's this whole like casters dick riding narrative. It's bullshit as well because the players and the coaches agree as well.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting. I mean, going back to why I asked you the question, I think it's interesting because I think most people would be like, well, yeah, O2 Blast players, you know, they're probably top 3 in the league. And then immediately the conversation starts. The conversation literally starts at they are the best team in the league after picking up these contenders players. That is just like mind-blowing to me. And I'm not saying I disagree with it. I'm just saying like, wow, that's crazy. That this team picking up contenders players are like the number 1 team. Like,
I think the thing that it creates that silver lining is it's been an age issue. It's not that these players weren't good enough to be in the league. It's been the fact that they haven't been eligible to play in the league before. So like, I think if all 3 of these players could have played in the league last year, I think all of them probably would have been there, right? So it's like they are finally eligible to be here. So that is why it's not as crazy because it's not like they're just like, oh, they was just the best team in tier 2 and they just weren't in the league for no reason.
I mean, this is like a 2-year plan to complete the Infinity Gauntlet where, you know, year 1 last year Shock was like, all right, we'll get the O2 players available. And it's like, oh, now the rest of the O2 players are of age. Oh, by the way, magically the age limit has gone from 18 to 17.
Yeah,
so
bit of bias there.
So it's like, you know, we're all, and by the way, Chat is right. I do choose the MVP. You know, no one else votes. I choose the MVP every year. So.
Avril sets there's only the two most culturally impactful figures in the Overwatch League scene is Avril picks the narrative that everyone dick rides, and then BP picks the meme team that can do no wrong. Last year it was the Charge, and it was the Valiant with NoHill. Like, so those are the two suns and moons of the cultural centers of Overwatch League. They get to pick like the memes and the non-memes. The dick ride. No, that's it.
All right, that rounds out the San Francisco Shock, and we'll do some separate team preview and talk more about how good the players are specifically and what we like about them, stuff like that. Something else that was announced. Well, it was announced because it was almost leaked. Toronto Defiant, they announced NoHill and Wheats as their assistant coaches. I'm not going to expand on that. So this one's quite interesting actually, because Kasaurus actually tweeted out that they did extensive assistant coach trials, and apparently NoHill was the best assistant coach, or not even the best assistant coach, like the best coach they trialed for the assistant coach position, which like speaks
out of like 150 or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it was 150.
It was a lot. Yeah,
it was a lot. Yeah. And as well, Wheats, who I actually said at the start of the offseason, keep your eyes peeled at where Wheats is going, because that will probably give you a hint at where American Tornado is going. But fortunately, it was the other way around, where Wheats now rejoins the team that he coached with a lot in Contenders. So, what do we think about the Toronto Defiant coaching staff? Generally, just having one coach, it's like a bit of a bit too slim. Not a fan of that. Now you have 3 coaches. You have Kasaurus, NoHill, and Wheats that go way back with the team. How do we feel about this? And NoHill not coaching the Valiant. A fan favorite.
First of all, I applaud Kasaurus for playing the metagame here, which is to say that he specifically in his tweet says, by the way, we trialed over 150 coaches. And the meta discussion there to be had is, Connor, you remember this one, when Florida Mayhem and the whole coaching there was like, oh, you guys don't give tier 2 coaches a chance. And Kasaurus just comes and is like, yeah, so we trialed 150. He just gets ahead of that. I love that.
Get ahead of it. Honestly, incredibly smart. Not only do that, then he made sure to, even if NoHill might have been the best choice, by making sure to acquire NoHill still, it made sure that they're above any criticism as well. Because NoHill was designated meme coach of the year, and thus he could do no wrong. So it is a classic. It's a good move. Kasaurus, he's nothing but a political animal, that guy. That's why I love him. That's why I love Kasaurus. I'll be running with him. He'll be mayor one day. I'll be his deputy governor. It'll be a good time. It'll be a good time.
I can say that the only thing that I'm like looking forward to is to see how NoHill's like tweets about how he interacts with his players and how he dreams about Overwatch translate to hanging out with the American Tornado and the Toronto Defiant players, because I can imagine it's probably quite a bit different dynamic in the Toronto Defiant compared to the Valiant last year. And
it's the Zoomer haircut house with the house, so it's gonna be interesting to see. I actually think so. Obviously, NoHill is like, there's been a lot of hype about NoHill for a long time. It appears that he did great. I'm really interested to see Wheats return to the Overwatch League, because essentially he did not beat, if I remember properly, I'm trying to go back and remember, was Wheats on Vancouver Titans at the same time as Flubby and Pew?
May 2020 until September 2020.
I just can't remember.
Yeah, so 2020 was the year they had.
Did they bring everyone up at the same time with Wheats, and then they promoted like Flubby or something to like head coach or something like that?
Wow, we're going like, deep into.
I'm just trying to remember, because essentially Wheats he's had a history of excellence, but I think there's like that can be sometimes misconstrued, because like sometimes you just have the best roster and you can kind of just slide as a coach. You don't really have to do much because your roster just pounds out of control.
Justin and Flubby were the same time.
So I don't know. Wheats is an interesting person, because the narrative is that like Wheats did not beat the Flubby Pew allegations. That's like the narrative, is that like essentially he was doomed because he was working with them. I don't know enough about Flubby and Pew as individuals, how they operated the team, to definitively say like they destroyed Wheats' career at the time, right? Like I have no idea. I cannot make that judgment call. I simply don't know enough about them. The Vancouver Titans built one of the worst rosters ever seen, and so like this is not
multiple.
It was tough. Yeah, multiple big, which you could put that on them then, but I also don't know what their budget was. Like, so, it is kind of, actually, no, I mean, I can't put them on them. So yeah, they definitely were terrible talent scouts. They were definitely really bad at building rosters, but like overall, there's a lot of different factors going into that. But I'm interested in Wheats come back because he was Redbird Esports. But once again, Redbird was probably one of like, competing essentially for being the best / like number 2 at times with like the collegiate over the contender scene as a roster. So it's gonna be interesting to see him come back with Kasaurus as the head coach and NoHill as an assistant, and like what that dynamic's gonna be, because it's kind of a second chance to be like, he's had this long history of excellence in contenders, like does that translate? Because NoHill, I'm like, as much as like I like to make fun of him and like the memes that are generated, he did do better than New York Excelsior with
Oh, for
with like
fuck's
literal.
sake. Can we stop
No,
with that?
I can't let it go. I can't let it go, man. I can't. The conditions out of that were insanity. The conditions from the Valiant were insanity, and he told me about New York.
You're
So,
like walk
he
into
did.
like a McDonald's or something and see like chicken nugget on the menu and you get like PTSD. Like, oh, nugget, no. Oh, this is
I
terrible.
can't.
This is a Wendy's.
You got problems.
I
Avast.
can't.
You gotta figure
It's
this out.
It's just simply ridiculous. So I think it's an exciting team, and it has arguably this is it. This is like what we've been waiting for. We've been growing these American Zoomers in a lab, training them up. This is an all-American Zoomer team minus Majed. So like it's like we're prepared, but a Majed is essentially an American Zoomer.
Hey, he's part of the crew.
If you've ever talked to Majed, he is an American Zoomer. He is essentially an American.
I
Zoomer.
love
So,
the
like,
backstory. I was like, how did Majed get involved? And they were like, I don't know. He was like in one of our group discords, and we're just invited him and play some games. It was good.
Yeah, they're just bros. They're just bros, and so like I'm excited to see what this team can do because it's a lot of talent. It really is. It's a lot of talent on this team. So it's an exceptional amount of talent. So.
Brian in the YouTube chat. NoHill lacks experience with players trolling scrims, so good fit for Canadian Rain. That's a good one.
The rumor I heard was that Wheats is coming into the team to manage egos, but maybe that's just some Dante adding in slander. I'm not too sure.
I mean, I could believe it. That's
Dante
believable. It plays to my own
again.
biases. I like that Sam also calls Dante the most delusional Overwatch play. That's too funny to me. God, I love this team. I love it. I love what they're gonna represent because like it's either gonna be like hilarious, just like funny as fuck memes, or just ridiculous copium. Ridiculous like copium that comes out of like losses and stuff. It's gonna be like no in between. I think it's gonna be
like
project.
a couple years ago. Or maybe like a year ago, people really started to worry about all these big personalities leaving the league and like who are like the face of the league, who are like all the star players. Thank God for the Toronto Defiant, man. We're stepping in and just being the most amazing characters and being goofy and silly, and it's just the absolute best. It's awesome. So.
Well, it's more so Angry Titans than it was Toronto Defiant, but Toronto Defiant, we'll see what they do with them. I say thank God for the Toronto Defiant for willing to pay the money to get them all in one team.
Yeah,
no one else was willing to do that. So well played, Toronto Defiant. No one can do it better than you losing money. No one can do it better. But let's see what happens.
Yep. All right. I think this is the last topic of the day, and then we'll see. So Lona Spitfire.
Actually, Johnny, real quick. Johnny, you should interview
I've
NoHill.
already
Seriously.
updated the topic bar. What's up?
You should interview NoHill. Add him to the list.
Probably. Yeah.
He could do it, right? He is relatively.
There is
his English is good enough.
Yeah.
There are a lot of players and coaches to interview. It's we'll see.
But how many would do
I
it
can
shirtless? NoHill
Rubbing his nipples, shirtless, behind a player.
Personality in the league, love to see it. Lono Spitfire, they re-signed Sparkr. That was their big announcement after Nuki has spent literally months trolling the community about never posting announcements, and they want to reveal who they have signed. But also, there was like some weird like whiteboard or something welcoming the players back, and they crossed out names, and they were like, yeah, there's teasing stuff. I think Hardy posted this, like blocking out things, and please wonder who the covered names could be. Am I just falling for the silliness again? Am I just falling for this bait because London are just a bunch of annoying people to deal with?
Well, they have to sign one more player.
Is a robot lethal? Surely.
Well, they said there's like people are saying that's an L at the end. Is that an L? I see a line,
here?
So it could be an L. Yeah, right there.
This is not an L. I mean, this is the literal line.
If it's a lowercase,
a lowercase L, you mean?
Yeah, it could theoretically be.
Oh.
But the thing is, that's not consistent because the welcome lowercase L is very different than the rightmost lowercase L.
That's because the welcome style.
It could be two different people.
Look at how different these are. Look at Hardy, Admiral. Look, Admiral, L, straight.
See, so maybe two different authors here to
two different
confuse
authors.
Us. Mm-hmm. Essentially, this is what Leonardo da Vinci did with the Catholic Church. He wrote backwards so they couldn't burn his readings. So like. This is essentially what we're getting to.
I love that everyone's like, who's Xavier? Well, that's Commander X, is one of their coaches.
Who's Chris? Who is
or was
Chris,
it Copernicus?
Guys?
Was it Copernicus or Da
What's
Vinci?
PO23? What's that?
It says 2023, but yes.
I know.
I saw. That was a weird writing of 2023. I agree. Yeah.
I mean, lethal would make sense if it's a lowercase L.
Okay. If we put all our brain cells together, how many players and
Oh God! Don't put that on us. Don't put that on us.
I'm not gonna. That's too much work.
Yeah, that's too much.
I went over here. It says birthdays. Chips Hyan once. Elevote. This guy is called Magi. It could be him. South Korean main tank player.
No, I don't think it's gonna be him.
I
don't think it's gonna be him.
No, you don't think because
I don't think it's gonna be
the L, the Magi or
no,
L,
I don't think
I like it. I think we
if
should
it is
send
this player, this is insane.
He played for Guangzhou Academy in 2020.
See?
No, I don't think so.
Look at the trajectory.
Okay.
He goes from Guangzhou Academy to London. Like, what a journey.
I mean,
3 years later.
I just don't think that's gonna be happening.
I don't know.
I'm
It's
London's like, you know what? We got to look at Chinese contenders. Yeah, there's some players there.
in 2020.
That would be so fucking funny.
Nuke,
But
that's
I
where
just
Nuke's
don't-
scouting.
I just don't think that's happening.
All right, you guys will figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all overall pretty happy. Sparkr resigned to London, solid player. There were some talks about where he would go, exploring his options, but he returns to London. I just want to see London run it back for the most part, to be honest, because they're a fun roster and they seem pretty good. So
Could be another good, decent year for them as well. Like a pretty good year for them. They had a good year last year.
Yeah.
Beyond a decent year, honestly. They had a good year. So like I think they've kept most of their core the same. It depends on what else they bring on. So there's possibility to have another good year.
mm-hmm.
The question is, do you think a good year is the same position that they finished this most recent?
It's probably
year?
gonna be a bit rough against some of these powerhouses, but then
That's
again,
sort of what I'm saying,
if you
like-
play like one of these teams, doesn't have to be Boston, but like they struggle with their teamwork, communication, stuff like that. That's where London Spitfire steps in. That's what they do best, right?
Harding needs a Ryan meta. Give him a Ryan meta and he's flourishing.
Yeah.
Well, it is right now.
I don't know. Let me think about so if we think about London's regular play, the regular season placement was what? They finished up in like
Top 8?
7.
Well,
yeah,
it's
they finished top 8 overall. So they had a good regular season. In playoffs, like they
Did good.
finished like 5th, 6th pretty well. Like yeah, 5th, 6th. Like so I mean I still think that like the possibility is still there because like the APAC teams have been pretty severely drained. So to talent, and they've gone to these super teams in North America with like Houston, like Rain, Boston, you know, like I don't know. I there's still a possibility because of just the fact that the mid-table to lower table the lower table teams are going to be potentially even worse than last year.
Oh, yeah.
And the mid-table teams likely have gotten and APAC have gotten weaker potentially because of the same talent draw to the top. And London's kind of remained the same. So there's a very real chance they could place. Like I think that's very likely.
Where did London finish again? What place they get?
In playoffs, they finished like 5th, 6th overall season. 8th,
yeah, that'll be hard.
Like 8th.
Yeah, I think my thinking for them, which is what they're going to have to manage, and that's on Chris, and you know, we have a lot of respect for them and their players and what they've accomplished, but going into last year, it was a lot easier because they're like, everyone's underestimating us, let's prove them wrong now.
True.
But there is a level of expectation that happens coming into this year of they're expected to be, you know, we don't expect them to be better than, you know, the top 5, top 6, but now they're going to have to firmly sit in the middle of the table. So are they going to add more pieces to round them out, right? Like, a lot of last year, especially in the first half, they played a lot of Hardy Ryan that was sort of against the grain. Are they going to get away with the same thing this year? It feels like a Ryan meta-ish.
Imagine if they got a Ryan meta again and just pounded.
It
It's just incredible.
Ryan the whole
Incredible.
season, yeah.
That would
But
be so insane.
Like, it'll be interesting to see if they're going to be able to replicate the same performance.
Yeah. Could also
I don't think it's out of the
see-
realm possibility though.
I could totally see also as well, like Hadi taking this offseason to improve his other heroes and come in and just be like, look, okay, before we even go there, no one on this podcast has said that Hadi's a one trick. No one said that he can't play Winston in the league, okay? No one said he can't play ball in the league, okay? But so just temper that down. But I think we can all agree that his strongest hero last season was the Reinhardt. And so we're looking forward to see London dominate with, you know, outside of that more than we did last season.
And
His Junker
Backbone
Queen
May
was pretty.
Back-
I mean, his
Backbone
Junker
May
Queen
was
was
nasty.
pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
I think his Junker Queen was not bad either. It was pretty solid. I would say his Junker Queen was potentially better than the other two tanks even.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
But like it's
Hadi
there's
Zarya?
real possibility.
Hadi
Hadi Zarya.
Hadi Diva.
Hadi Zarya.
Well,
Hadi Diva.
I think Space would be a great addition to this team. Like in just like filling out the off-tank roles of like if they need a Sigma player, if they need that, kind of what Poco accomplished for them last year. They didn't play a lot of Poco, but having a player who just sort of gives them that option if they need it.
Yeah. It would be a shame if Space is not
in like
also
any team.
The Space and the Cloud9 EU connection 2017. There you go.
Oh yeah,
all I'm saying is
5 years, 6 years later. Oh my god.
Yeah, a return.
Space could always return home to the Valiant, the OG.
True, good. Imagine if Space is the headliner for the Valiant. That could be crazy. Imagine then, like,
if Space
also,
joins
like,
the Valiant, I'm buying a Space Valiant jersey. I'm saying.
I think Verbo's still available.
It's on record.
Verbo's just been making like Christianity NFTs, so like they could get Verbo.
What?
Yeah.
I think Numlock is out there somewhere.
Yeah, he's
out
like
there
he
somewhere.
joined like a Christian NFT organization.
No.
So like.
Johnny,
like
don't
that.
Google it. Don't go down there. Don't pull on the thread. Don't pull on the thread.
I am not showing this.
There's Karib is like. Well, I can't. He like did Karib retire?
Fate's out there somewhere.
Coaching?
He's chilling.
He went because he was a player for Mayhem and then he became a coach and then he just like retired. I don't know what he's trying to do these days.
Who?
Because like and then Fate's still
Karib.
potentially out there, but I think like
I would expect Fate to go back to the Shanghai Dragons.
that's what I would imagine too. But like who knows? So like there's some possibilities there. There's some possibilities. You never know what's possible.
Verbo doesn't even know.
Let's see what's
Twitter
happening.
anymore.
Because the NFTs died.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they deminted him. They've deminted. He's gone off the blockchain. He's no longer verified, so he can't be on Twitter anymore.
Man. I was bullish on Christianity. Damn it.
Yeah.
Lucky. What else?
It did not have a blockchain ledger to see, the various. So I'll work out for
the
them.
blockchain. Someone wanted us in chat. To quickly talk about Donghak joining the Atlanta Reign as well.
Fair.
So again, just self-promoting myself here on Plat Chat. I actually did a scouting report on Donghak, just scouting out some of these players. So if you want to read more about my analysis on Donghak, you can join my Discord, and I did a write-up there. The takeaway was, though, if you don't want to read that, the takeaway was, I'm not too impressed. I don't love this signing. And I'm curious to see what Avril thinks, because one thing I didn't do in my VODs, actually, was go back a lot to the 2021 6 versus 6 VODs.
You didn't miss much.
No.
He was a ball one trick on Runaway.
But that is the thing. Everyone's just like, oh, fantastic ball player. And I went back to watch the VODs, and it's like 6 versus 6. You can't see the ball. Plays for Runaway. He did some okay things. But so I wanted to watch this 5 versus 5 stuff. And so I watched a little bit of A-sides, the Jotes. I watched a little bit of like Run It Back. Multiple different heroes. Seems like an average contenders players. Am I wrong, Avril?
This guy has to be a scrim god or a trials god, because having looked over his past games, and to me, I haven't gone back to them. It's just from memory. Nothing really impressed me. I was surprised that he got announced to Atlanta. I'm like, okay, like, was this the best option they had? Like, was there no one else? I was surprised. His last team was 815, which did awfully in contenders career.
He got benched the last 2 matches for his team in one pack.
Really?
Yeah, for his offside player attack.
Just a sadly a very forgettable player. The only reason I remember him is because he was a funny one-trick ball man on Runaway in 2021. In I think Runaway's last year, and it wasn't even amazing. Like, I don't know who's saying he had a good ball, because when I think about good ball players, that was the ball year, by the way. You had the Fate, you had Gaga, right? You had Junbin's ball as well at various stages. And when I think about really good ball players, I'm like, damn, these guys are doing some crazy stuff. I look at Donghak, I'm like, that's just okay. Like, I wasn't like blown away by his ball, and that's his best hero. And then having looked at where he was last year, maybe it's the case where 815 was just a really shit team.
That's what I was speculating too, yeah.
And if you're the tank player and your team's doing poorly, you probably look worse. So I'm giving him some free cope.
Yeah.
Like I said, off his match results only and his match play only, not impressive. So he must be a trials god. He must be a scrim god. It's the only thing I got.
The question I have is, we just brought up his name. Would you have rather had Fate on this roster? You know, obviously Fate just had a pretty rough year. His Winston, you know, isn't one of the best in the league as it once was, but his ball in 2021 and 2020 was incredible, right? So it's like, would you rather just have Fate in that scenario?
Yeah,
I would personally.
I would say yes too.
Sure.
Yeah. There's also a proven aspect of Fate fulfilling that role to like an Overwatch League caliber of play. When I was watching Donghak's VODs, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds here now, but like there was an element of cautiousness. There was an element of like his timings were a little bit wrong with like when it came to team fights. And so like he had good ideas sometimes. Like I think in general his Winston play was solid. Like did the right leaps, did the right really good bubble placements actually of like setting up his team at fights. But like I couldn't find a single Primal Rage where he like popped off. I couldn't see a single fight where he like did like a 2-for-1 trade that like set up his team for success. It was always just like sticking with his team, holding back, watching the Jotes met as well. He was never like a Junker Queen who like made a play. He was just like hovering around his team with a decent rampages. And like essentially what I wrote is like historically I much prefer seeing Winstons or like tank players that like push themselves to their limits, quote unquote limit testing, and like toning that back down, whereas seeing a tank player who is just like kind of like hanging around with his team, is not going for a lot of plays, and it's just like pretty mid. Like I'd much rather see something, right, that you can improve on and work on. But I didn't really get that feeling from Donghak. So I'm curious to see what they say. Because for context as well, Brad posted a comment on Reddit who was like, yeah, I mean, we picked him up before we even started scrimming because there were a few unsigned tank players that we thought were like really good in the offseason, and we wanted to make sure we signed Donghak before any other team could. I'm paraphrasing.
Was he really that in demand?
I'm paraphrasing. So something along that vein, you can go back and read the comment yourself. But I'm not sure that Donghak is quite everything he seemed to be hyped up to be.
I'd be surprised if he was that in demand. That Brad felt like I better sign him now.
I'll find the comment. Fuck it. Why?
No, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm not saying I don't believe you.
No, but I want to do Brad justice. I don't want to like. I don't want to like.
Fair enough. You know what? I'll give benefit of the doubt there. But when I'm looking back on running back rosters now for Korea, and sadly, the tank lines, all the tank players after Junbin Max fall off a cliff. I would say the next best tank players after Junbin Max in Contenders Korea were Tuyu and Jasmine. But the issue there is they're both off tank players, and you don't want to overlap with Hawk, so you're not going to get them. And then for the main tanks available, you got Arpin, who's kind of a Winston one trick. And Hawk, Cass, not really impressive. Protect is another off tank player. So unfortunately, if you want to go Contenders Korea, all the main tanks after Junbin are just not competitive enough, in my opinion. So there's not great options there. I don't know if there was a better main tank available in NA or EU, but certainly in Korea, I think the well dried up after Junbin Max.
Yeah, so there we go. Here's the comment from Brad as well on the signing. Just to clear the air, we started trialing main tanks before Hawk played a single scrim. We simply looked around and realized there are a few really good unsigned players in the main tank position not signed yet, especially with the age rule change. We more or less signed Donghak without even trying Hawk on main tank first. So I don't know. There's the comment and what they said on the signing. So that just made me like review a few more matches and like, am I missing something here? But I don't really feel like I'm missing something. He has pretty good ball mechanics. If you want to see a good ball map from him, I'd recommend Colosseo versus Pantera.
I think I got it. I think it'll work out.
But like, I don't know.
The more I think about it, the more I believe that the reason they signed him is literally for ball. They literally,
probably,
I think, my position on this.
Kalush was just like, I don't want to play ball.
Yeah,
like, there's
exactly.
Probably players like Hawk.
I actually remember
that.
I remember it came up from what Kalush said. It's like Kalush. I'm sure Kalush and Hawk are along the same lines here. Ball is just one of those weird heroes, man. Like, unless you're a ball player, it's a hard hero to pick up and try and learn and play. I mean,
Kalush said they'd be like, if he had to play ball, Toronto's going to exercise the 30-day.
Yeah, that's really. So I think Atlanta literally is like, Hawk's going to play every hero unless it's ball, then Donghak's going to come in and one trick the ball. I think that's literally it.
We'll see how it goes, but I worry that we could be in a scenario where they might just play Hawk because Hawk is a more consistent bet, and it's not worth.
Oh, Hawk starting for sure.
It's not investing. No, I'm saying like investing in scrim time and resources into Donghak for of the few times he needs to be played. So I think we'll see what happened. But there's our genuine thoughts on Donghak. I think in essence, us pouring a bit of water on the Donghak is red hot and is amazing. Joining the Overwatch League takes that I saw on Reddit circulate a little bit. All right, there you go. Plat Chat episode 167. At least we got to some actual Overwatch talk and actual like talking about the Overwatch League and rosters and stuff like that. So I'm glad we did that, and we didn't just doom and gloom the entire episode, because that first hour, Jesus Christ, guys, that was intense. Might as well upload that to some, I don't know, esports finance.
I felt it was a good discussion. I felt like it was an important, good discussion.
Podcast. We're not just here to be happy all the time. We're here to discuss the news.
Yeah.
We're hard hitting podcasters. Okay, we're hard hitting podcasters. We hit the news and we don't always get it right. But
yeah, I just get self-conscious because I'm not sure I qualify as someone who's an expert on esports revenue generation and economic viable models.
Well, I am. You have an expert on, so it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, we got a guest in the chat. Ty Sundays in the chat. Ty, what do you think about the LA Valiant? Who do you want the Valiant to sign? Who do you want the Valiant
what's
to
your
sign?
dream team? Tay, what is your Valiant dream team for 2023?
Here we go. We'll ask him. And while we wait for the answer, we can do Bren's Player of the Week. I actually have a bit of a sleeper pick for Bren's Player of the Week.
I did too.
So okay. All right.
I'll let you go. I'll let you know. You're the host.
We have two sleeper picks here. Is there anyone, Avril, Custa, anything that like comes to mind that you think are like obvious candidates here this past week?
Stan Kroenke.
Oh, that's I'm gonna
I don't know if he gets to make it. I don't know if he gets to be the Player of the Week though.
No,
I don't think he's
because he didn't get married. That's why.
Yeah, if he got married, maybe.
Yeah,
Is he not got? I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. I don't think he's earned
shit. I have no idea.
Wow.
I got nothing.
Got nothing. All right. My sleeper pick for something cool, original. This is going to be way out of left field, but I did actually tweet about it yesterday. Io Stokes, the Overwatch coach, if you remember, he's been around the scene for quite a while. He made a custom game mode aim trainer that is cool as shit, and I thought this was like awesome. So I'll just quick explainer. What essentially happens is you're in this arena and you're shooting targets, and the speed of the enemies speed up as you kill them, and so it like dynamically like changes like the difficulty of the game and how fast paced it is. I just thought it was like pretty cool for an aim trainer and like pretty advanced. Usually it's just like you're shooting players jumping around in some lobby or shooting moving targets.
I'm assuming you can do like other heroes here, right? It doesn't have to be.
I don't know if he showed it, but yes. But you can like change whether the projectile speed matches or whether you're doing like the regular projectile speed for all the different heroes. You can toggle like if your movement speed changes with the enemies or like if you're consistent. Like all these different, and it explains like all the different reasons like why you would want to train different things and where it would benefit you. So I just thought this was like cool, innovative stuff in the Overwatch community. So I liked seeing it.
Can I put my pro? We can choose between. Can I put mine up there?
Yeah, I mean this was a small little sleeper pick because it's a bit unusual for Bren's Player of the Week, but I wanted to throw it out there. So what do you got?
Fair enough. Mine is Hex from Optic for being the only person to monetize esports by selling his brand multiple times back and forth.
Jesus Christ! I would like to throw a third hat in the ring there.
It's better be good because we've had two really good ones from me and Connor so far. So
yeah, I'm gonna go for all the guard employees who got fired because I think they actually created a really cool brand, and I think what they actually created was awesome, and it was sad to see them all get fired. And they deserve an important accolade. Yeah, they were very talented brand. Very talented. What they created was fun, and they can get the accolade of Bren's Player of the Week, and hopefully it makes them feel a little bit better.
I need to find the spreadsheet now. Who has a spreadsheet?
Hunter on Twitter had the spreadsheet that they posted, I believe.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so I mean that's fair. That's very fair. They're a very talented group, extremely talented group. Lots of fun stuff over there. Us and Plat Chat, we've directly worked with the guard. In fact, on the Valiant side, multiple times, and they were always great to work with. Very open to the collaboration and like, in fact, I would say Plat Chat as an entity on the Valiant side, it was very tied into the guard in their early operations. and their brand building. So and they were great to work with, and a great group of creatives, and like how they imagined and like because sometimes orgs I think can be sometimes are occasionally inflexible when you think about like how you work with like certain parties and what you do, and like they were like very open to all sorts of like the dumb stupid things that we wanted to do. And I think it paid off for them with their brand recognition in Valorant because of how creative and open to different things they were.
Yeah. A bit sad as well because everyone was just like, we had so much shit. We're just like ready to throw out there.
Well, did you see the photo that they took before the meeting? They were all like in a room, and one of them took a photo that has all the employees like smiling, like look at the camera, and this was like a moment before they all got told that they were getting let go.
Brutal! I hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and they had a guy, one of their head graphic designers, a very notable one, George Nowak. He had just been laid off from 100 Thieves right before.
Oh
like,
my god!
Incident.
He just got hit twice.
So he literally just got double cucked. But also the 100 Thieves layoffs comparatively, a lot of people made fun of them, but like George himself talked about how, this is the one. He talked about 100 Thieves, actually, they were very, like, you can tell the difference between a well-managed company and a not well-managed company in just the way that their operations, went out and how they exited their employees. So like, this was like, you can clearly see the difference in care and like what good management does for a company like 100 Thieves versus what happened with, so. Yep. So yeah, what's your pick? Who are you picking? Probably the guard, I imagine.
Probably the guard.
I imagine you're picking the guard.
I feel like in the spirit of Bren as well, Bren would want it to be the guard employees, and wishing them all well and hoping they land on their feet. But yeah, I don't know what you think about this, Avast, but this seems like peak esports content right here.
It was. I mean, and what I gave guard a lot of credit for is like one of the hardest parts for their content team, because it was their content team, their graphic designs, their marketing team that essentially were all the ones that were laid off, and they were getting they were managing to get these players to do some fun, interesting concepts, and that's like the hardest part of building content for an esports team is like getting players to do shit. Now it's like kind of 50-50, right? It's like realistically it's more on the players' ends to be like, okay, I'll work with you, but they made sure to still come up with fun concepts, and like they were doing a lot of work to try to build a very interesting, unique brand over there. So very sad.
I'm not gonna find it now, but related to I actually found it immediately. It was funny. I actually saw this video this past week as well, where it's kind of like tangentially related to that guard video, where Halo Esports produced this video where they have some director on the stage, and he's like trying to tell a player, and he's like, cross your arms harder, cross your arms, cross your arms. Get some smoke in here, and he's just directing these poses. This was brilliant as well.
I did see that one as well. That's a good video.
Yeah, it's a good video. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. There you go. Bren's player of the week goes to the guard. Thank you for that.
The employees, not the
employees.
the organization.
Not the organization. The employees, not the guard, the organization.
The people laid off.
Guys, clip it,
Johnny. Clip it. Johnny, you're done. You'll never work in this field again, pal.
No, I'm done. No, I'm done, guys. Oh, fuck. All right, good stuff. Next week, I promise, I think we gotta get into these team preview episodes. I was
gonna say, we're running out of time. We're like under a month going
well, I think we'll alter the format.
So many teams haven't announced, and yet
it's so annoying. Yeah, but we have some we can. Dude, who the fuck knows what's gonna happen to the APAC region? They have like profit. Yeah. They have a profit cest, and that's.
I thought Hangzhou was supposed to be announcing today, or at least they were teasing an announcement today.
I almost got baited. Someone quote retweeted their announcement from like 2018. And it was like the Crystal Bebe. I was like, whoa! But I was like, okay. I almost got baited there.
Dude, you gotta be on your toes.
I would love Crystal to come back. That'd be so fun.
Dude, Crystal coming back would be. This is perfect for this season.
Level of extortion.
It'd be perfect.
That would be incredible. I wish he joins the Valiant. That would be amazing. I don't know.
I would lose it.
Should.
Yeah.
I just want to get like the actual like villain team. Like you get like Crystal, you get like fucking Envy, you get Daco, you just get like the actual
Striker.
Like,
he's already on the team.
No, he's not on a team. No, he's on a team.
We gotta end this episode. But Tay responded to us, by the way, who he wants to see the Valiant sign. He started off, Jonak, bring back Pine, Isayaki,
okay.
Prophet. Is that the contenders'
sure.
Prophet?
I think he means
He means
real profit.
goat profit,
Okay,
but he
profit.
spelled it wrong. But it's funny because there's another player that's also spelled that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Also
well,
interesting.
that is a dream team.
3 out of 5 are flex support players, so we'll make it work. But-
Tay
Okay,
understands the need for a
It's a start.
backline. He understands
Hey,
the
New
need
York,
for a
New York did it.
backline.
Yeah.
New York had 3 flick supports. They did really well last year.
Yeah, that's true.
He's handing it. We're done. Go,